My name is Peter Stanton. I'm the publisher of the Worcester Business Journal, and this is the 5th time we've been producing a Mass Energy Summit. It's been a program that has been very exciting for us to be part of producing, and we don't do that alone. We do that with several partners, and that includes presenting sponsors, National Grid and Integris Energy Services, and also our supporting sponsors, Conover and Company, Prince Lobel, LLP, Mark E. Meacham, the Hanover Theater, and all of the exhibitors and the panelists that are here today to help educate all of us. I also want to make just a special note of thanks to Hess Energy Systems, who have purchased renewable energy credits to make this a neutral event. They purchased 131 kilowatt hours to make sure that this energy summit is a green event. So thank you, Hess, for that. I would like to bring up our two presenting sponsors, not at the same time, for a couple remarks. And first, I'd like to ask Bruce Edwards, who's the commercial leader of outside sales in Massachusetts and Northern area, for National Grid to come up for a few comments. Bruce.
Thank you, and thank you all for taking time to come to this summit today. Energy efficiency is a subject that we've been talking about at National Grid for over 20 years. We've got a number of programs that are out there, initiatives, but more importantly, it's about what you folks want us to do for you. And if we don't hear from you, we can't develop the products that you're looking for. We had Ed White in Washington last week talking to our government and talking about energy efficiency and some of the things that we think that you're looking for, financing. A month ago we were in Worcester and we were talking about the smart grid. And we've been talking about the smart grid, and it looks as though we're going to come together on about 15 initiatives, and it's a great opportunity for National Grid and for Worcester to take advantage of some new technology that's out there and really make a name for the smart grid and for National Grid and Worcester. I'll encourage you all to go on to thepowerofaction.com, stop by our booth, pick up some literature, but more importantly, I'll challenge everyone. We've got 2 more months to get through this year. If you haven't done energy efficiency before, there's still time to do it this year. And more importantly, next year, 2012, National Grid has a goal to save 1 million megawatt hours, which is equivalent to about 29,000 homes worth of energy for an annual year. That's what our goal is next year in Massachusetts. We can't do it without you. So take advantage of today, tomorrow, and our future. Invest in energy efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. And Mike Caufield, the Senior Account Exec from Integris Energy Services. Mike.
Welcome, welcome. Integris Energy Services is a nationally recognized retail supplier of electricity and natural gas. We cover 20 states across the country. I'd like to thank the Worcester Business Journal for putting this event together. We're a proud sponsor of it, and there's a lot of changes occurring in the energy industry. We think it's important for you, if you don't have a strategy for procuring electricity, that you should consider putting one together, determine what your goals are. We think it's important that you have the capability to incrementally decrease your costs of energy over time. We also have changes where we look at the effect of natural gas has on the cost of power here in New England, and with the new discovery of shale gas and how that will affect the cost of electricity going forward is an important development for you to maintain and to keep an eye on. But most importantly, I think what you learned today and being responsible in your own organizations to predict the future, it's important to have a supplier that gives you the information that you need in order to make the decisions that best fit your risk portfolio and your own company. So with that, again, I'd like to thank the Worcester Business Journal, and I hope you have a good event. Thank you.
Let me get on to introducing our keynote speaker. We are very pleased to have Barbara Kates-Garnick Kates-Garnick here this morning. Just 1 month ago, she was appointed Undersecretary of the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, where she succeeds former Undersecretary Phil Giudice. Her previous energy positions with the Commonwealth include serving as a former DPU commissioner and a member of the Energy Facilities Siting Board as a DPU director responsible for developing Massachusetts' first natural gas deregulation policy. She's also a former assistant secretary in the Mass Office of Consumer Affairs, where she managed various aspects of budgets of the Public Utilities Division and the Department of Energy Resources, both of which now fall under EEA and would be part of her portfolio of energy agencies and programs. So she's clearly moving up the ladder. Her previous work included advising the Polytechnic Institute of New York University on issues related to urban systems, clean technology, energy policy, and entrepreneurship. And she has also served as a consultant to Con Ed and on a team revising New York City's sustainability plan. And all of this while, of course, living in Massachusetts and sharing the great wisdom that our state has with our neighbors. Anyways, prior to that, she also served as an officer at Keyspan and was the founder of the New England office of New Energy Ventures, which now operates as nationally as Constellation New Energy. Please welcome, without any further details on her rich background, Barbara Kates-Garnick.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm delighted to be here, and as you see, I can't keep a job or I'm moving laterally, but I see a lot of friends and old faces. So anyhow, you know that I'm the new undersecretary, and I bring greetings from Secretary Sullivan, who is very pleased that this summit is actually taking place, and very interested in the issues that you are addressing today. The other thing is I would really like to thank Peter Stanton. I would like to thank Kim Prosser. I would like to thank National Grid and Integris for making this conversation possible. And I think that the Energy Summit, or the meeting that you're having today, is really an example of how people in the energy field really are getting down to basics, addressing problems, seeking and implementing real-term solutions. And really what you're doing is you're serving at that nexus where the energy market and energy policy meet. So we're very much on a learning curve, and what you're doing and how you're beginning to change a lot of the world, I think, is a very important thing. What I'd like to do this morning is to step back for a few minutes and look at the current situation that we have in the energy world, and in particular in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we all know that Massachusetts is at the end of the energy pipeline, both in terms of supply and price. We've never had an indigenous fuel supply before, and that's always been a big issue for us. And therefore, we've had to be, quote, resourceful and innovative in how we look at our energy picture. So what we're experiencing today is nothing new, but is very important to put it in a context. We also know the energy market is incredibly volatile. So right now, oil prices are up, closing at $105 at the a barrel on Friday, higher than the 2005 price spike, while we have natural gas prices down on average to date from the highs that we also experienced a few years ago. So oil and gas are not tracking at this point in time. Yet consumers in the Boston area have paid 10% more for electricity in August than their counterparts in the average U.S. city, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So we have price volatility, and as you know, we in Massachusetts are paying more. As a result, we have to be resourceful, and really I think that means that we're having to turn to the supply that we do have available in the Commonwealth, which means energy efficiency and renewables, and also clean technology, which is spurred on in part by the research institutions which are special to our state. So I think when you look at energy efficiency, renewables, and technology, and particularly the new technologies that are in the marketplace, I think we're at a point where we should be hopeful. The other thing is, for all of you who've been in the field, is that we realize that energy takes a long-term perspective. You know, changes that we put in operation today often don't come to fruition for a few years later. A matter of fact, from my perspective, can you imagine if we had put in place 25 years ago a rational energy policy, what benefits we would be experiencing today? I mean, I can't even begin to think about how our world would be different. So thus, we're in a situation, as we always are, where we have to both have a bold vision, which is the Patrick Murray administration, but also pay attention to details. And this, I think, that we're doing as well in the administration, particularly in the Division of Energy Resources. In other words, and the other thing is, and this cannot ever get lost, is that success will depend on a partnership between government and the private sector. So it's great that government sets a framework, sets policies, but it's got to be workable and implementable. And this, we know, is the way that we'll have a positive outcome. And I think that that is very important, this notion of the public-private interaction, where things aren't working, where there are problems. If we don't learn early in the process, we'll never make the little tweaks that are necessary to actually be effective. So I said to you that from my perspective, and coming into this now in a short period of time ago, I'm actually very, very impressed by the incredible vision that this administration has had. And I just have to, give you some of the examples and how much change there's been over the last 20 years since I've been in government. First of all, during the first term, Massachusetts honed its focus on clean energy, innovation, and development, and we truly are a national leader. And given the problems we've had on a national level, it's very clear that really the states are going to take the lead. And though I can't presage a very positive announcement, tomorrow the governor will be in Washington accepting a prize that's very important. But at this point it's embargoed, but pretty soon, from those of you in the energy efficiency world, I'm sure you'll be watching the press releases and you'll find out what this nice thing is. Anyhow, the governor signed two very important pieces of legislation which have set challenging targets that must be achieved. So the administration is very clear now. They have broad targets that they really need to achieve, and they realize now that we're in the implementation stage. And obviously the first piece of legislation was the Green Communities Act, which really prioritizes energy efficiency and renewables. It mandates that public utilities increase the amount of new renewable energy by 1% a year. And it's also authorized the state to carve out portions of the renewable portfolio standard to support specific technology sectors. And thus we've seen what we call a solar carve-out that requires a small portion of renewable energy obligations to be allocated to solar. To spur the development of renewables, we also require that utilities solicit long-term contracts for the purpose of purchasing renewables. So this is all very important mandates for us, and we heard that the representative from National Grid said that the utilities have to fulfill these mandates and are really revising their programs and making sure that people participate in them. So that's very important. So we've seen success, and an interesting place to look at success right now has been solar, which is combined. So we have these XRECs, these solar renewable energy credits, which have been combined with the Commonwealth rebate program. And we have seen a 30-fold increase in solar capacity from 3.5 megawatts in 2007 to 90 megawatts approximately at the end of this year. I think this is sort of an astounding thing because you do see that policy can affect the market and you can see positive growth, and it's very nice to be able to point to a statistic like this. Since we also know that National Grid has signed a contract to purchase a significant amount of energy from Cape Wind, so here we have a long-term contract. On the efficiency side, CGA, the Green Communities Act, requires that utilities invest in all cost-effective energy before turning to power generation to meet demand. As a statistic, Massachusetts is now investing more per capita in energy efficiency than anywhere in the country. And we will see that impact of that when that award, which I can't talk about, is being announced tomorrow. The DPU has approved plans for utilities to invest $2.1 billion over 3 years in energy efficiency, which should lock in $6 billion in savings. I mean, these are tremendous numbers, and these are very, very ambitious goals. And I think that that really is truly what is pushing us. Under the Global Warming Solution Act, the Patrick Murray administration has also set the strongest greenhouse gas reduction mandate in the U.S. 25% below 1990 levels by 2030, and an 80% reduction by 2050. So all of this sounds great in the future, but as we know, that the future comes upon us more quickly than we ever thought we would experience. And we have a clean energy climate plan, which is going to provide a blueprint to meet the goals. Clearly, these are goals that require participation by the market. Otherwise, they're not going to be reached. So now we're at a point where we have broad goals, and we now have to begin to implement them in a very positive, good way. So achieving these goals, we need to look closely on how to get there. So we know that a renewable energy industry in Massachusetts cannot exist without very detailed policies. So right now, the Department of Public Utility is looking at net metering and interconnection. So you can have all the solar in the world, but if you don't have the right net metering policies and you don't have the right interconnection agreements, it's going to be very, very difficult after a period of time to start to put these technologies on people's houses and businesses. So that's a very important thing, and we are very aware of that. Also, we have to, if we're going to bring renewable energy in, we have to have a good transmission policy. And the governor has challenged us to see if we can develop a regional transmission policy that is good for Massachusetts and is also good for New England. So we've been very active in both doing this regionally with our other New England states, but also at the FERC, where we have to be vigilant to make sure what looks good for the United States is also good for New England. And I think that's very important for us to focus on. And though it sounds arcane, it's a very important part of our whole broader policy. The other thing is that we have technology advances, and obviously those of you who are in the marketplace know the importance of smart grid, which we know will eventually bring us a more reliant, safer, and more information-friendly energy system on all levels. And we know that these are very, very important things, smart grid, but we know there are also issues associated with the smart grid. And we don't know how consumers are going to react to all the information, but even if we don't have meaningful price signals, you can give people information, but until it affects their bottom line, I'm sure it may be difficult to get some people to act. So there are many details and many complexities that we have to work on. But in today's economic climate, the bottom line is jobs. And this is something that we all know and that the Patrick Murray administration is really committed to in terms of bringing energy innovation through the creation of clean tech jobs. And yesterday, the governor made a major announcement. He went to a new company in Boston that is really focused on energy efficiency, and he announced that our Massachusetts clean tech economy had a 6.7% increase in jobs between July 2010 and July 2011. And this is actually significant in a time when we're finding that jobs are really in a decline, that there is a sector of the economy of green workers where there is a growth. And this was a survey done by the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, and that study pinpointed 4,900 clean energy companies in the state and posited the expectation that clean tech jobs will increase 15.2% in the coming year. So those are huge numbers given this economy. And I think the concept that this study had was the notion of a green worker. So we all might be green workers, I'm not sure, but the notion is that if you are working on clean energy in some format, you really have to be considered part of the clean tech economy. And I think the importance of this is interesting because we really need to build momentum. We really need to have a positive outlook. And if you begin to realize that a clean energy worker may be doing other things, but at the same time they have this commitment to being effectively implementing clean energy, it's another way to look at the numbers. So I think that this is a very good, positive, optimistic piece of news, and that they were validated also in a study also released yesterday by the Solar Foundation, which showed that that sector was growing 6.8%, and that it identified 2,395 Massachusetts workers in solar-related employment. So, as I said, there's been a huge growth in solar, and these numbers validate a lot of this. So, in conclusion, because you want to get on with what you're going to do for the rest of the morning, I think we're at a point where we have excitement and success, but that we know that success also means challenges, particularly in making the market operate smoothly for us to reach our goals. And that is really the point. We can promulgate regulations, we can promulgate policies, and no one likes every piece of that policy. But if you identify areas that really hinder your ability to be successful in the marketplace, it's really good for us to know what those obstacles are. Because oftentimes it's a little tweak, it's something that could be changed, that doesn't take away from the big policy, but enables us to really meet our goals. So the word I'd like to stress today is this whole word of partnership. That Massachusetts, as a state, really all of us have an interest in being a national leader in energy innovation, clean tech, and jobs. And that is important. We all benefit because a rising tide lifts all boats, and we have to think of ourselves in a very unique position in the country. And when we do it in this way, all sectors of the industry should benefit. And most important, a word that I haven't used, is our consumers and customers, who are really everything that we really need to make our own businesses successful. And when the customers benefit from energy opportunities presented to them and recognize the benefits and make the right investment choices, the Commonwealth as a whole benefits. And the administration is very much aware of that and is really looking to all of you to help us make this a reality. So I thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Anything? Yes.
In some of the utility service areas, the 1% rule is certainly limiting off-takers, in this case manufacturing companies, from even participating in the program. I know jobs are important, but manufacturing companies have the right to relocate outside of Massachusetts. And often they do in this economy. What's on the horizon to try to address that issue?
Well, it's an interesting thing because we've just gone through a legislative, a DPU process on this. And I think that right now, that 1% cap, excepting, for municipalities in certain instances, is going to be still there for a while. But if you could make the queuing process, if you could make it more certain how you get into the system, at least, some of the implementation issues will not be such a hindrance. And I understand the issue of the cap. I think the thinking of the department, honestly, is that that cap gets paid for by the ratepayers. And on one hand, when you're doing a lot of energy work, it's a trade-off, and high utility bills, even percentages, upset people. So it's a balance, and that's the reason right now that I think that the DPU is seen fit to have the cap. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, unfortunately, most companies, they'll try to work with a state or work with a region up to a point, and then they just leave. And then people say, well, geez, why didn't you tell us? And they are telling in various forms and ways, but it just didn't get addressed.
Yeah, and I agree. And, we're, again, on the other hand, and as you see, I'm new, so I can't take full, credit and responsibility for the good or the bad. I think that we right now have built a very healthy solar market with the SREC credit. I think that there are some issues that need to be worked out. So it's not that we don't hear you, and I understand about companies leaving the state, but it's that balance of who pays, when they pay, and all of that. So again, I know, but I think that's really what drove that policy. It's not the answer you wanted, but at least it's the explanation. Anything else? Yes.
A question that has come up multiple times, which has not been clearly addressed yet, is property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Because a number of the towns and cities are looking at assessing taxes or requiring payment in lieu of taxes, and yet that's in conflict with the Green Communities Act.
Right.
So this has a potentially major impact on
Right.
projects. I'd like to get that clear.
Okay, well, I don't honestly have all detail, but if you give me, I'll come stop before I leave, and hopefully I will be able to give you a coherent answer, which I will then be able to share with the rest of the people. We're very aware of the conflicts and the problems that does cause. Again, it's these balances between one set of interests and another that make all of this, as you know, so difficult. But I will get back to you on that one. Now that I didn't answer that, is there something else I... Okay, yes.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for being here. My name is Amy. I'm with the One Stop Career Centers in Worcester, so helping the job seekers side. 2 questions. You mentioned the solar industry a few times. Could you name perhaps a couple other types of green industries that you're really seeing take off as far as actual jobs? And then I've got another follow-up question around entrepreneurship.
Right. Well, this is the whole issue of these notion of the green workers. So, on the solar side, you're seeing the installers, you're seeing, people on the ground. But I think it's the notion of anybody who is actively engaged in some point of green. So whether you're, a lawyer putting together a green contract, as we begin to see more activity, you're going to get to see people seeing green technology issues being much more part of their daily work. So, I think that is the concept of where jobs are going to come from. But the other place that jobs really are going to come from is the technology side. And bringing new technologies, and they're commercializable into the marketplace. And I think that is really where the administration believes that we will begin to see growth. Products have been refined, fuel cells, all of these other technologies. And let me give you another example. Buildings. Buildings are a huge cause of greenhouse gases. We have stretch codes now in many cities and towns as relates to buildings. So that to meet those stretch codes, people are going to have to become much more innovative in their energy use. They're going to have to figure out how to put in new technologies. They're going to have to figure out landlord-tenant issues so that when you put those kind of regulations in place that cities and towns need to meet or agree to meet to be a green community, you'll begin to see jobs in those areas coming out of the marketplace. So, that's where we see a lot of opportunity for growth as well.
Okay. And then regarding sort of incentives for entrepreneurship. So people that were recently trained in green fields like weatherization technician, or perhaps a little bit higher scale, more of the information technology supporting some of the green industries. A lot of these folks I work with think they want to be in business for themselves, and I'm just wondering realistically in that first 0 to 3 years in a startup, especially in a green field, are there any particular incentives for them to be able to make it here in Massachusetts in those early stages of startup?
I think that that's something that we have something called the Mass CEC, which is really the area that is offering a lot of incentives. So I would suggest that you go to the CEC website, and you will see that that issue of job growth and incentives and grants that people can apply for as they do their startups is actually on that website. And there are grants available. And the other interesting thing is, for example, from out of the storms, and we've done some things to help people rebuild. And out of those rebuilding are going to come energy. We've targeted energy, more efficient technologies, and everything to be installed. So there should be opportunities in all sorts of ways, and that Mass CEC website is a good place to start. Anything else? That's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Barbara. And just as a memento, I think under the whatever the gift threshold is, a lovely book, picture book of Central Massachusetts.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing your time. And it sounds like you're going to grab a couple folks before you head out.
Absolutely.
Terrific. Thanks so much. Okay, we're going to head straight into we started a few minutes late, and we'll try and eventually catch up during the day. Everyone's got a timetable in their packet, so you can see what we're accountable for. It's my pleasure to bring up the moderator of our first panel, and that's Will O'Brien. He's the director of the Worcester Sustainable Business Leader Program, and he's an executive in residence at Clark University's Graduate School of Management. He's also a lecturer at Johns Hopkins University's Environmental Studies Department, and as well as for Benedictine University's Asia Institute. His many courses include eco-entrepreneurship, energy management, operations management, organizational change management, and sustainability consulting and management. So, Will O'Brien, get us started with the first panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Right now I'd like to introduce the panel. And actually, please, why don't you all three join me up here? Good morning. There are many different ways to reduce energy consumption and costs for your business. This panel of experts will provide you with the tools, information, free and low-cost resources, and connections needed to propel your own sustainable business initiatives. Our approach this morning is to discuss 6 basic questions regarding energy efficiency, focusing on those areas that will be of most value to you. We have a total of 50 minutes, and we'll respect your time, and we'll cover these 6 questions, and then we'll allow 10 to 15 minutes at the end for questions from the audience. Let me start by introducing Bruce Buckby. Bruce is Vice President of Operations for World Energy, where he heads up the firm's emerging energy efficiency group. Bruce has held senior positions in a wide range of small companies for over 25 years, in a career involving recreation and real estate to sustainability and energy. Bruce holds a doctorate from Springfield College and is accredited as a lead in LEED AP through U.S. Green Energy Building Council. His experience as a business executive and his passion for sustainable business practices has led him to the belief that developing a corporate energy plan, including comprehensive energy efficiency measures, is one of the most important initiatives that a company can launch in order to stay competitive. Mark Garish, MSME. Mark is a research fellow at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. His area of expertise is combined heat and power analysis, steam system analysis, and energy efficiency measures. Prior to returning to the University of Massachusetts Center for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, he was a project manager for a steam turbine generation integrator. There, he oversaw the design, fabrication, and installation of over 11,500 kilowatt steam turbine-based CHP system in food, wood, and paper industries. Additionally, he has performed combined heat and power feasibility assessments on 20 facilities, including commercial, industrial, and institutional sites. Mark is a U.S. DOE qualified steam and pump systems analyst specialist. Mark Siegel. Mark is the manager of energy efficiency at National Grid, responsible for managing electric and gas energy efficiency programs for business customers. For the past several years, Mark has managed National Grid's small business direct install program in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire, while also building the infrastructure in upstate New York to support $20 million per year program that now provides energy efficiency services to approximately 6,000 small business customers a year. Mark has also managed National Grid's large business energy efficiency program, including during the past 3 years when programs grew from approximately $23 million in 2009 to $65 million in 2011. So we have a real panel of experts here. Let me start with the questions. I'll actually answer the first one because I think it's pretty straightforward and we don't need to hear from the experts on this one. The first question is why businesses should want to save energy. Do we need to take a lot of time on that one, folks? I'll give you the answers. There's three basic answers. First is to reduce operating costs. Secondly, this ties in with the first point, it helps maintain profit levels while revenues are decreasing. And thirdly, it minimizes pollution and the use of natural resources. So three very important, critical answers, especially these days. Let's get into the questions for the panel. And first question is, companies have a lot to think about on a day-to-day basis. So what is the best way to jumpstart the process of evaluating energy consumption, and how can companies make sure they stick to the plan and measure their progress? Let's start with Bruce on that, please.
Energy is has become a very complicated subject for businesses, and we really work at the interface between the utilities and our corporate our clients. So we hear all the time sort of the day-to-day problems that companies have to face around energy, and I think I find that we do actually a lot of sort of organizational management work with companies, because we find that so many companies just do not have the resources to hire a quote-unquote energy manager. So the question is sort of who's going to take on this responsibility within the company. To me, is sort of a fundamental issue, and so we always look for, I'll call this person an energy champion, whatever you want to call the position, to take on this responsibility. And it could be a facilities person. It oftentimes is the CFO. It's best if it's the CEO. To take on this responsibility and start to get their arms around a whole range of energy issues. Also, from our perspective, companies are bombarded every day with calls from brokers, suppliers, folks selling lighting, folks selling a black box, this thing that's going to save them energy and whatnot. And from my perspective, from our perspective, the place to start is get your arms around your energy. What's your overall energy plan? And then if you start with an energy plan, then you can start to prioritize, however your priorities go, how you want to sort of tackle these whole range of complicated energy and energy efficiency issues.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Mark Garish, please.
It's a matter of prioritization, as Will said. Right now, a lot of our businesses, their business is contracting. So by increasing your energy efficiency, you can counter some of that lost revenue by increasing your energy efficiency. Even if I work a lot in the industrial sector, and they tend to focus on production improvements rather than energy efficiency. Well, if you increase the speed of your process line, 20% by implementing some measure, are you even going to be able to sell that extra product? Whereas energy efficiency will always increase your profits by reducing your bottom line. So that is an easy way to look at it. As far as getting started, it's, again, I said prioritization. Prioritize your loads, see where your large energy users are, and start there. I mean, you can pick around the edges all day with lighting and fans and small motors, but look at your large energy users like your boilers and your HVAC, and see what you can do there, and then work down. Make a plan, like Bruce said, and just keep working at it.
Thank you, Mark. Mark Siegel, please.
So I love being the third one in this panel, because if I can just summarize what these two gentlemen said, they're absolutely right. And I really get off easy on this one. Hopefully we keep this same order.
We'll reverse the order.
You get the next one first.
I heard some common themes. Complex, absolutely. A lot of information coming at people. Yep, and it's every single day. And business customers, of course, we have to look at them and say they come in all shapes and sizes. And as Bruce said, if there's an energy manager, let's say for a national account customer, they've got the resources to look at the boilers and to look at the other equipment. But if you're a small business customer and you really have about 7 minutes a day to think about energy, then you really need a different solution. And what we at National Grid, in terms of offering energy efficiency business programs to customers over these last 20 years, is that we try to offer a portfolio of programs that recognizes that customers come in a whole variety of shapes and sizes. And if you're that small business customer and you need a direct install turnkey program, then we've got that, and the thing to do is call us 800-332-3333. And if you're a large business customer, I know I'm like the Ginzu knife salesperson here, but the truth is that no matter whether it's a simple project or complex project, or whether you're just starting to think about energy, the first thing to do is call your utility or program administrator who's administering these programs. We offer programs for new construction, so if you're going to be building a new building, call us first. We offer programs for retrofit where you're even looking to change out existing lighting or HVAC equipment. Call us first, because we can help you in a variety of ways, including technical assistance. We'll start to work with you to identify and prioritize. Absolutely critical. What's the biggest user of energy in your facility? Let's tackle that first. We'll set up a strategic energy management plan if that's what you want to do, a 3-year commitment where we will fund over the 3 years our share of project costs along with you if that's where you want to go. We really try to offer that whole gamut or portfolio of programs based on what your needs are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So I'll give you the first opportunity for this question. I think you just answered part of it, but as you develop your energy plan and as you implement your energy plan, is it best to work with your utility provider, a private contractor, National Grid, or through some other means to do the energy efficiency work?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, the answer is yes. Yes, yes, and yes. Absolutely. Definitely work with all of those different entities, as I mentioned. Call us. I mean, we do have these programs. The keynote speaker, really touched on a lot of important points, which is the Green Communities Act was landmark legislation. It really put Massachusetts way out in front of the rest of the country, even in front of California, which was always way out there. We, as she said, are spending more per capita on energy efficiency than any other state in the country. That's an honor, and it's a burden. It's one of my problems. Bruce Edwards spoke about it earlier. Our budgets this year are $65 million, just National Grid, for our large business programs. for making investments in conjunction with our business partners. We want to spend every one of those dollars on cost-effective boilers and chillers and variable speed drives, lighting, the whole gamut. And so the way to do that is yes, yes, and yes.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
There are a number of free resources out there that you can take advantage other than just working with your utilities. And not to steal anything from National Grid, but all three of the major, well, 3.5 of the major investor-owned utilities are running the same energy efficiency programs, which can be investigated at www.masssave.com. It gives you a good overview of all the programs that are available out there. I work for the Center for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. We have a number of DOE-sponsored programs that are free to business owners and commercial entities and municipal entities to help you along the way. But right now, with the utility programs the way they are, the utility really is a great place to start, and they will point you in the right direction.
Bruce? Thank you, Mark.
I agree with you, Mark. It is yes, yes, and yes. But in addition to that, I think that, as I said, because we really work at the level where we're talking to facility owners, building owners, property managers, and the question is sort of where do you go to? So of course, you can go to your utility, whether it's you know, whoever it may be here in the state, but also the utilities have relationships with a whole group of ESCOs, energy service companies, that help them to deliver the energy efficiency or the energy conservation measure, whether it's lighting, mechanicals, VFDs, energy management systems, industrial processes, and those companies can help you as a business owner to get the best available utility incentives that are out there. And I'm a huge believer that as a ratepayer, we all have an opportunity and should enjoy all those incentives that are out there, and there are substantial dollars, you know, out there.
Thank you, Bruce. In fact, let's stay with you on that because that's the next question. What sort of incentive programs are available that businesses can take advantage of? And are those incentive programs going away anytime soon? And do we need to act fast?
That's a very good question. The incentive dollars are really breathtaking out there between the two major utilities here in the state of Massachusetts. I believe I've got the number right. In 2011, there's over $500 million. And that number's going up next year to, I believe, over $700 million.
In Massachusetts?
In Massachusetts alone. Now that's for residential and commercial. We work primarily, or we work on the commercial side. But the utilities have an obligation. They need to push those dollars out into the marketplace. You heard the speaker at the beginning, you know, saying, please, we want to give you money for these programs. So those dollars are out there for you as business owners to participate in, as I said, lighting, mechanical, VFDs, energy management, systems. So take advantage of them. They're there, and the ROIs on many of these projects, depending upon what you may or may not have done over the past 5 to 10 years in your facilities, can also be breathtaking. We're looking at projects for companies where there's a 6-month payback. You know, these paybacks run anywhere from 6 months to 24 or 36 months. You know, tell me where you're going to get that kind of return on anything else that you do within your business. So the incentives are huge. I don't know what happens after 3 years, frankly, but I have to believe that between the Green Communities Act and the leadership that NGrid and other utilities are taking in this, that there's going to be plenty of dollars going forward.
Thank you. Let's go to Mark Siegel on that one. Now, is there some sense of urgency regarding the remaining funds for this year?
What's most important here it is the sense of urgency for our customers and the need to reduce costs for our customers. And we want every customer to get engaged with us. And I just want to circle back. Mark's comment about masssave.com and consistent statewide programs, that's absolutely accurate. We are now working with consistent programs across the state, and whether you contact us and we're your electric or gas provider, we're going to pull in the other utility who's involved. We collaborate all the time on projects between gas and electric, and we send leads back and forth or customer interest back and forth between the utilities, because that's the only way we're going to achieve the goals in Massachusetts. And so I appreciate your raising that. The sense of urgency, getting back to the original question, is really about comprehensiveness within your facility. And yeah, we can come in and do the lighting, and a lot of times customers want to start with that. But then we want to move to a much more comprehensive solution where we're setting up an investment schedule for you over the next couple of years. The dollars are going to be there for the next, the Green Communities Act is the legislation, and 2012 is the third year of our original 3-year plan, but we're right now working on the next 3-year plan for 2013 through 2015. The dollars are going to be there, but the sense of urgency comes from the need for you to reduce your operating costs, more so than whether the dollars are going to be there or not. And if I can just add one other comment, because the incentive dollars are huge, and that is sort of the 800-pound gorilla, but keep in mind that we also have money available for technical assistance to identify opportunities, to go through on a whole building assessment, and just begin to prioritize what are the greatest opportunities. And then just as importantly, after the project's done, we have money and we have resources available to do what we call post-commissioning. We want to make sure the equipment is operating the way it was originally, sort of the engineering estimate, if you will. We want to make sure that the occupancy controls are set up with what your hours of use are, so you're getting the savings that we did as part of our technical assistance. So the back end of it, it's not just the incentives, but think of it like an Oreo cookie, a double stuffed Oreo cookie. You got the technical assistance, you have the incentives in the middle, and then you have that post-commissioning quality control to make sure you're realizing the benefits of that project.
Thank you, Mark. Mark Garish, would you care to comment on that question?
The only fading incentive that I can think of is there's some incentive tax credits that are available through that were funded through ARRA and reduced and increased depreciation that may be going away in the near future. I don't have the exact numbers on those, but those are probably going away in the near future, so if you want to take advantage of those, it behooves you to get started earlier. But as Mark said, I mean, which one of us can afford to keep spending money we don't have to?
Thank you. Let's get into a bit more specifics on the opportunities. So many business owners, when they think of reducing energy use, probably envision efficient HVAC systems, light bulbs, and vehicles. Would you please talk about these type of improvements? Also, what are some of the other types of improvements that can be used to reduce costs and reduce energy usage and save money? So let's go with back to Mark Siegel on that one, please.
Okay. I'm back.
Yeah, okay.
In preparation for today's panel, I went through to look and see what type of customers we deal with. And, I could go on and on, as you've probably already picked up, that we deal with all types of customers. We deal with dairy farms who are doing milk pre-cooling, and we can offer incentives for milk pre-cooling. Now, there happen not to be a lot of dairy farms in Massachusetts, but we've touched all of them almost. And if we haven't, we're interested in getting to the rest of them. And then we can go over to ski resorts, and we've helped with ski resorts with snowmaking equipment, and we've provided incentives for variable speed drives. We love wastewater treatment plants. That is like heaven for us. And boilers,
You're a boring guy, Mark.
I know. Demand
you gotta
control.
get out more.
I do. Demand control, ventilation. Basically, our programs are designed to look at all electric and gas energy-consuming equipment, and then identify whether there are opportunities there. And typically, there are.
Thank you. Mark Garish, please.
It's a matter of right-sizing your equipment. Almost any, as Mark said, any energy-using piece of equipment in your facility probably has some sort of optimization that can be done to it. A lot of stuff, us engineers aren't perfect. A lot of it's oversized. A lot of it's wasting energy because it's been turned down in an inefficient manner because the load has reduced. Statutes have changed. You may not need the ventilation level that you needed. Your process may have changed. You may not, be using the same chemicals anymore. You don't need quite so much ventilation. Things of that nature. Your boiler may have been sized to serve loads that are no longer there. So almost any piece of equipment is a potential for savings.
Thank you, Mark. Bruce?
I agree with Mark on how he sort of approached the whole issue. Every customer is different. Every business is different. All their needs are different. Your commercial users, the issues are primarily around lighting and HVAC. I mean, it's a pretty simple. When you get into industrial processes, it's about efficient industrial processes. It's about motors. It really varies with the customer. But the interesting thing that we see out there, and Mark, it speaks to your issue about, this is sort of customer driven and market driven, is that there's increasingly a whole different attitude about energy efficiency now, that it's and energy in general. It's not something that you just get the bill, you pay it, you complain about it, you pay it, and you move on to the next month. I mean, companies now are recognizing in this deregulated marketplace and in this decoupled marketplace here in New England, I can do something about this and get some help in and look at all the different possibilities. But the big issues, it's lighting and it's mechanical retrofits and it's VFDs and it's energy management systems. By the way, energy management systems, if ever there was a high ROI, I don't know anybody in this audience is selling energy management systems, but I'll have a plug for you. They are hugely successful in terms of reducing energies. Now you got to manage them on the backside. That's the hard part of it. But installing energy management systems, motion sensors, CO2 sensors, systems with dashboards that allow you to monitor your HVAC equipment and its performance. Just the ROIs are through the roof.
Let's follow up on that. And the last, actually, there's 5 small questions in this last section that deal with the financials in terms of cost reduction, ROI, and payback periods. So I'll break them up in terms of 5 quick questions. Let's go back to you, Bruce, on this one. How should companies weigh the cost and payback of energy efficiency measures?
Oh, boy. Well, let me tell you how we approach it with companies. We go into companies. We're business people too. We've got a business to run, so we go into companies with the expectation that if we can't deliver them to at least inside a 3-year return, they're probably not going to do it. And in fact, in this economic environment, it's got to have the number 2 in front of it, or they're not going to do it. So we really do look at this as a financial analysis for them. And, you know, we look at, you have to baseline. You have to baseline your energy data. If you don't baseline it, you aren't going to know what the improvements are. It's that gray line, what gets measured gets managed. And so we'll help them set the baseline. We will then develop the energy conservation measure, the proposed energy conservation measure, the expected energy savings that comes from that. Then we apply their cost per kilowatt hour, and then we'll develop an ROI analysis for them. Based on that ROI analysis, they can either say, we're going to do it now or we're going to do it later. And then, of course, you apply the utility incentives, which you know, we like going into companies saying, you know, we're here to help you get all the utility dollars that you can get. They like hearing that. And that's the basis of the analysis. And then we just prioritize these things from highest ROI to lowest ROI.
Excellent, thank you. Mark Garish, please comment.
I think that all businesses should look at energy savings like any other investment they're going to do. If you want simple payback, then have your provider provide you simple payback. If you want ROI, provide the numbers that they need to provide to give it to you in ROI. If you want present value of money, have them give it to you. Energy translates into dollars, and obviously dollars translate into dollars, so we can look at the dollars in any way that you'd like them to be looked at. It's whatever's going to make your decision making easiest for you. Everybody's willing to talk in the language that you want to hear.
Very good. Mark Siegel.
Yeah, it is a financial analysis. We all agree on that. And our programs are designed in the retrofit space to buy the investment for the customer down to a 2-year payback, and in new construction or time of replacement to buy it down to a 1-year payback on average. And then we also have additional incentives. If you're willing to be comprehensive, we're going to make it even a little bit sweeter because you're looking at multiple end uses, and we recognize that that's sort of stepping out of a comfort zone, but we want you to look at multiple end uses and invest in multiple end uses because you're going to maximize your savings, and we're going to help you with that. And then lastly, we also have the ability to, for some projects, to do on-bill repayment. So we can offer 0% loans for up to 2 years, zero interest, to help you with your share of the project cost. So there's a lot of opportunities out there, but ultimately, the answer is it is a financial analysis, and then incorporating our programs, as Bruce described, and the incentives just helps you to get to a comfort zone. And we've seen that comfort zone over the last couple of years with obviously the economic impacts and the economy, where it had been 3 years and then it was 2 years. And now we have some beautiful projects that are 1-year paybacks, and customers are on the fence about making that investment. And that again is where those sweeteners for comprehensive projects or on-bill recovery help to get the customer to say yes and make those investments in energy efficiency, which helps everyone in the Commonwealth. I mean, that is ultimately why National Grid and all the other utilities and program administrators in Massachusetts offer these programs.
Thank you, gentlemen. Actually, you all answered the multiple questions that I was going to ask, so at this point we're going to fulfill the promise to open the floor to questions from the audience, please.
Considering building to building LEED certification at different levels, when it has a higher level, it's hard to swallow when the price is that much bigger to build it. But how do you see that translate down, in ROI going down the road? So how do you convince somebody to build the LEED silver, gold, and then how does that translate as far as what your return's going to be on that building?
Bruce, you want to take that one, please?
I guess the wise guy answer is it depends. I'm a lead AP. That said, I think that, and I'm not sure I'm directly answering your question or not. You know, LEED's sort of an interesting phenomena. I think building owners, developers need to think sort of long and hard on what it is that they're trying to accomplish, and if they want that USGBC medallion on their building, that's one thing. But if what you really want is a highly efficient, energy efficient building that uses locally produced materials with recycled content, with proper siting, with solar harvesting and comfortable environment for the workers, you don't necessarily have to go with LEED. Now, to your question about financial analysis, I mean, you know, that's what energy modeling helps to do. That's what you put your financial people to work to understand where your potential savings are around energy. It's not an easy question, but I do think that any developer or builder of buildings today, they absolutely have to do is that they've got to take advantage of all the sweeping technologies that are out there around mechanical systems and lighting and energy management systems to have the highest performing building, because we're reaching a point, I think, where the customer, the commercial customer, demands that these systems be in and the costs be low and the CAMs not drift up, just because you've got higher cost of energy now. So I don't know if I've answered it specifically for you, but that was some of my thoughts around sort of LEED versus Energy Star versus just a green building. So.
Thank you, Bruce. Next question, please. Yes, yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. One was related to your question on the incentives and the sense of urgency with regard to moving forward now. And Mark Garish made the comment that there were fading tax credits, but he also mentioned increased depreciation, because this is some of the things that we're running into with building owners making these investments, and now they've got a 39-year depreciation on their taxes. So, when you're talking about HVAC upgrades, is there anything as it relates to these increased depreciations?
Mark Garish, do you want to?
This is what I get for shooting my mouth off. I know that there are programs out there. I don't have the specifics on me at the moment. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. That's all right.
Can I add something to that? I think you're referring to the Energy Policy Act.
All right.
2005.
Right.
It's section 179D. It's going to expire. We're hoping to get it extended in Congress, but it's supposed to expire December 2012. It's great for these buildings, $1.80 per square foot. And if you did a upgrade this year, now is the time to get your building certified so you can take the tax deduction for 2011 tax filing.
All right, it's called EPAC 2005 is what it is. Yeah. And there's accelerated depreciation, there's investment tax credits available through that.
It's a deduction.
Deduction.
And it's accelerated.
Yes, yes.
Is that only through LEED programs?
No. It's through.
LEED buildings generally qualify to get the full $1.80 per square foot. Lighting or HVAC upgrades
Right.
can get as much as 60
Right.
cents per
Right.
square foot.
Doesn't have to be through LEED, through energy efficiency upgrades.
Thank you very much for that information.
And my second question is, these programs are all wonderful. The energy efficient equipment is wonderful. The commissioning upon completion is wonderful. But then the long-term usage, what incentives are there, or what education is out there to get the consumer or the end user to maintain their equipment for efficiency, for continued efficiency, and for continued return on their investment?
Mark, would you like to?
Yeah, that is an opportunity that we are working on, and so now we have incentives for O&M, operations and maintenance, where we will work with customers to look at their O&M schedules and pay incentives for those customers who are willing to make those investments in O&M, because it's time and resources, right? And it's effort, and it's monitoring your EMS system. To Bruce's point earlier, we can install a beautiful EMS system, but if people aren't monitoring those over the course of time, then there seems to be a variance between the expected savings and the realized savings. So we have implemented an O&M incentive. I don't call it a program, but there's opportunities for O&M dollars.
Thank you. Bruce, you had a comment on that?
Yeah, just a comment on that. To me, while this energy continuum from awareness to efficiency, energy conservation measures, to ongoing monitoring. The monitoring, to me, is the great frontier, and I think that. To give our friends in the utility a little break here, I think there's only so much that we can expect them to do. I think the reality is that all of us in the public and private sector, we need to develop internally policies, procedures, assign energy champions, however you want to do it within the organization. Because we see far too often companies will put this equipment in and then they go, well, that's done, and that's not how it works. Sure, you'll get a 1 or 2 or 3 year bump in your efficiency and you get that ROI, but then what happens? But it's also around technologies, because technologies are changing. I mean, we've done projects where we've gone into buildings that were just built 2 years ago, and because of the lighting technology changes, they can all be relamped and reballasted with a 25-month ROI on them. So we all have to keep up with this stuff.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have time for one more question. Anything? Okay. Yes, Pat.
I was wondering if Mark Garris could take this. I wonder if how industrial application of cogen has been, how the industry's been looking at cogen recently with decreased natural gas prices.
Thank you. Finally, somebody gave me one on my sweet spot. Cogeneration, or CHP, is an excellent opportunity if you have the thermal loads to sustain it. What CHP does is uses a single system to provide electricity and heating, and it's the only thing you're going to get permitted is natural gas fired. But if you don't use the heat, then that advantage goes away. So it fits in excellently at facilities that have a lot of thermal and especially low temperature thermal energy requirements, hot water, washing, things of that nature. But it also works in commercial buildings. I've done a few analysis at high-rise buildings in New York City. Now, with 20 cents electricity and $6 gas, it's not hard to make it work. But as long as you're using the thermal and enough of the thermal, it's an excellent technology.
All right. We just about used our time. I'd like to thank all the panel. We have one more question? Yes. I didn't. Go ahead, please. I didn't see it. Okay. I'd like to thank the panel members for their knowledge and sharing their wisdom with us.
Okay, I'm going to be the moderator for our second panel, and I think if you look at the three panels, the first panel was really giving us a great grounding, really talking about funding and strategy. The second panel, we're going to get right into specific kinds of projects, specific ROIs, and really talk about projects on the ground and how to get them done and specific saving models. And then the third panel is going to be sort of talking about energy solutions for the future, which will be, so if I look at the first one, that might be a 5,000-foot panel we're going to be closer to the ground, and then we'll let the last group rise to 30,000 feet for a broader conversation about the future of energy. I would like to invite up our three panelists, and that is Roger Goldman, an energy specialist for the Worcester Housing Authority. Roger. Jonathan Markey, who's a senior project manager at Meridian Associates, and Adam Braillard, who's an associate with Prince Lobel and also heads up Prince Lobel's Green Energy Development Initiative, and he's a co-founder of their renewables, Prince Lobel Renewables, the firm's renewable energy project. So we're going to do it in a slightly different format than the last panel. Everybody in the group is going to speak really for 5 to 10 minutes with a few slides and tell us a little bit about their background and some of the projects that they've been working on and some of the details of those. Some of that information will be on slides, and obviously the rest of it they'll communicate. So we're going to start with Roger Goldman. So Roger, please feel free to take it away.
Hi, I work for the Worcester Housing Authority, and I kind of wear a few different hats over there. I'm a project manager and the energy specialist. So my big job over there is basically getting all of these energy projects to work and get money out of it. As you've heard from the previous panels, you know, the objective of all of this stuff is to stretch your dollars, and at a housing authority, stretching our dollars is a big deal. So we embarked on a large, or actually a couple of large energy performance contracts with the help of a couple of ESCOs, and did a major renovation of a lot of our buildings. The housing authority's got 24 campuses throughout the city of Worcester, so we're pretty spread out. We have everything from high-rises to two families, and we're all of our energy is from either natural gas or electricity. But in the performance contract business, it turns out that the flywheel, as they say, is water conservation. So, you know, we talk a lot about energy conservation and everything else, but if you're saving enough water, your water and sewer bill goes down enough that it pretty much pays for some of the bigger payback or longer payback items. So we kind of gain some benefits from that. So let me just go to my slides right now. The federal contract is almost $10 million worth of upgrades. All kinds of stuff, from lighting, heating systems, certainly water and sewer. I mean, there's a big list. And then the state contract's another $5.5 million. So between the two of them, you know, it's $15 million plus. Okay. There's some big numbers over there. There's like 272 boilers that we replaced. A lot of them are the modulating condensing boilers, and a couple other ones that are slightly lower efficiency things. Lots of ventilation system upgrades. One of the issues about ventilation system upgrades is there's these little gadgets called constant air regulators, and the problem that you have in a high-rise is if you overventilate the building, you're literally blowing your energy out the windows. So, you know, you want to limit how much air you move in and out of the building, but of course you have a requirement to do so much ventilation for all the good reasons for indoor air quality and so forth. So the big challenge there is to get proper distribution of your ventilation, so that you want to be able to use your exhaust fans to evenly distribute the amount of air movement on all of the floors. The constant air regulators are a relatively cheap mechanical device that lets you limit how much airflow there is out of any orifice. It's just a mechanical thing that uses a Bernoulli principle, and it just keeps the amount of airflow on any given floor. So we used this and evened up the airflow throughout the building. We used the makeup air units. These are just a way this was an energy switch. We changed over from electrical units that weren't terribly reliable, and then to gas-fired units, and also some of the makeup air units we actually ran off of the cogen. We used them as a load on our cogen systems. We have in the federal side, you see the 3 75 kilowatt Aegis Energy cogen units, and they're providing heat and hot water. And as I said, they're tied into the makeup air units. So we're actually heating the hallway air in the buildings with these cogen units. Also doing some heating on the lower floors of the building with that. It was an all-electric building that we cut over to this. And that's one of the ways to take care of that all-important thermal load that you have to deal with when you're running cogen systems. The energy management systems, we have a BACnet-based energy management system that has to go, it's all over the city, so there's a lot of remote networking involved in this. That was one of the big challenges. And the other thing that we did, which is also part of the cogen work, is the alternative portfolio standard credits, okay? As you've heard earlier, these credits are auctioned as part of the state-mandated program. The energy producers have to have so much green energy. We produce green credits by running our cogeneration units. We sell the credits. We make money off of them. My energy management system actually measures that, keeps that, that information, and distributes it to those that'll turn it into, monetize it, okay, get money for it for us. Once again, lots of washers that we switched over, actually washers and dryers that we switched over to more efficient units, and the lighting fixtures, thousands of them, okay, controls, thermostats, motors, lots of stuff all over the place. The big issue here, it was a comprehensive program. We have a lot of buildings that we did this in, and it's a huge project. And there, of course, there's the flywheel, the water measures, okay, where you see the, 1,700 toilets. I mean, that's a lot of toilets. Aerators, shower heads. I mean, it sounds low-tech and all this kind of stuff, but boy, it pays the bills. That's the stuff that has less than a year payback. And that's kind of how this works. And then there's a state project, which was, the other $5.5 million. And you can see a whole bunch of boilers there too, more cogeneration systems, and about half again as much lighting and water, and then also a bunch of refrigerators, which we actually managed to get for free. Which brings up the subject of incentives. I'll get to that in a minute. Well, there it is. Okay, the utility incentives. We got over $1 million worth of utility incentives. Our friends at National Grid did pretty well by us. So did NSTAR. A lot of this was cogeneration incentives, lighting incentives, boiler efficiency incentives. And then, of course, our projection is that we're going to save about $2 million a year. We're on track for that. And our net after the expenses, I guess, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the concept of a performance contract, but basically we take out a loan. We work with an energy services company. They helped us arrange the loan. The loan pays for doing all of the projects. The projects save the energy bills go down, the excess money that we now have goes to pay off the loan and the expenses, and then once all of that is done, every year we have another $200,000 on top of that that we get to use for the stuff that we do. That's taking care of people in housing. On top of this, we have the APS credits, okay, and we've put in monitoring systems on all those cogens, and we're using Nexent to help us to monetize those credits, and we're going to pull another $60,000 a year off of that. We're a big housing authority. We have a lot of older housing stock. A lot of our stuff dates to the late 40s and early 50s. So when we came to this, not only are we doing energy efficiency, but we're also getting brand new equipment. We're updating all of our boiler rooms. This helps us in terms of reliability, lowered maintenance costs, and all that kind of stuff. So it's all good from that standpoint. In addition, when you go to the newer lighting standards and this sort of stuff, they run longer. Okay, you put in the newer bulbs and so forth and electronic ballasts. The stuff runs longer. You get to save money on changing out light bulbs. So we took advantage everywhere we could of improved maintenance issues as well as the energy savings. So that was the magic combination that we were looking for. Okay.
Fantastic. Wow, some big numbers. Okay, Jonathan Markey, who's a senior project engineer at Meridian Associates. Jonathan, let's hear from you.
Left and right only.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. So just a little bit about Meridian Associates. I'm a civil engineer by trade. How I got into renewable energy. It was about 5 years ago. I used to do permitting for land development projects, and my boss came to me and he said, I need you to permit this thing, and he rolled out the plans and it was a turbine. And I said, I don't know anything about a turbine. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about on the first panel, this green jobs. I didn't start out as a green job. I'm a civil engineer. But my work has morphed into, I now lead the wind division at Meridian Associates. So Meridian Associates was founded in 1990. We're a multidisciplinary firm. We do civil engineering, 3D laser scanning, survey, landscape architecture, and of course renewable energy and sustainability consulting services. We've been providing development and infrastructure for 20 years, and this was just the right move for Meridian. We're headquartered in Beverly, Massachusetts. We have offices in Westboro, New Jersey, Houston, Texas, and North Carolina, and actually in Phoenix, Arizona, too. So, moving on, enough about me. Let's talk about some projects that we've implemented. So, some case studies for wind. We did the permitting and the feasibility for a wind turbine for Mark Ritchie Woodworking in Newburyport, Massachusetts. This is a facility, a woodworking facility, that he was interested in renewable energy. He installed one of the state's first biomass furnaces, where he collects all of the wood shavings and wood chips that he uses on a daily basis, and he heats the building with them. He went on further to do a feasibility study for a 600 kilowatt turbine, which is now installed. And it provides about 90% of his load. Back in the day, the Clean Energy Center for Massachusetts, who still offers grants, they didn't have a lot of people asking for money. So back in the day, we got almost $500,000 to put up that turbine. So with all the other incentives and the programs that we implemented, we're looking at about and that says 7-hour payback. That doesn't happen. That's 7 years. Yeah, I'd like to see anybody beat 7-hour payback in here. So, no, a 7-year payback on a $2.1 million project. It's that. I know that we were talking earlier about 2 years, 3 years, but when you look at the net present value from a $2 million project, 7 years, you know, now we're talking millions of dollars in net present value. So another case study that we did for wind, Ipswich, Massachusetts. Ipswich is a municipal light department. I think there's about 43 munis in Massachusetts. The way that this works for Ipswich is, Ipswich being a muni, they purchase power. They have to get the power from wherever they buy it from into Ipswich. So them providing their own wind turbine, they actually save on the transmission costs of getting that electricity from other places to the town. We also got $1.6 million in clean renewable energy bonds, or CREBs. And with the sale of REX, it's a joint project between the school and the municipal light department. The school's contribution to the project with the CREBs actually gives them a 1-year payback on the project. The way that the payback works for the municipal light department, it's hard to pinpoint because of the fluctuating cost of electricity, but around the 7 or 8 year. Oh, did I skip that whole slide? Oh, sorry. But now you can see the 7 hours. That's what I was talking about earlier. Okay. Moving on to energy efficiency and consulting services. What we typically act as is we'll be an owner's rep. We'll write an RFP and we'll evaluate different energy services companies to implement a myriad of what we've heard on conservation services, including lighting, HVAC, domestic hot water, pool and natatorium upgrades. The VFW, the variable speed motors for the pools and the pool covers save a ton of money. And also, we've heard about water conservation, 1-year payback. They're really no-brainers. The advantages, the multiple rebates from the utilities. We heard from National Grid earlier. National Grid and NSTAR, call them up. There's so many incentive programs from them that you can take advantage of. The advantages to the YMCA, they're a not-for-profit, so they get 3.5 interest on debt financing, which these projects make money for them. We're looking at a 6.5-year payback on $2.8 million project. An approximate savings, that's not $1 million, it's $100,000 a year. Some other things that we do at Meridian, as land planners and engineers, we do electric vehicle charging stations. These are going to start showing up more and more in locations. Our geospatial site design, regulatory permitting acquisition, and construction and admin support helped do the Lennox Hotel's EV charging station. It's actually the first privately owned, privately funded company in the city of Boston to install the EV charging station. And if you've ever done any work in Boston, it's really not easy to put anything in a sidewalk. So a little bit of work to do there, but you will start seeing them at more and more locations. Now I'd just like to finish by letting you know what Meridian Associates has done to reduce our carbon emissions. We're dedicated to purchasing clean renewable energy through REX. We have 5 lead accredited professionals. We have a fleet of hybrid vehicles, 5 Priuses, 2 Chevy Volts, 3 Ford Escapes, which reduce 190,000 pounds of carbon emissions a year. Our website is hosted by Wind Power, and our sustainability design implementation in our own office, recycled carpet content, low VOC, LED lighting, a little bit of daylight harvesting, So these are all things that you can implement in your businesses, and we take pride in that. So thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Sounds like you walking the walk, which is nice to hear. Okay, Adam Brillard, let's hear about some of your projects.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, everyone, for attending today. What I want to do is just get right into what Prince LaBelle does, what we've done, and share that with you folks. I think that Will O'Brien said it best in the original first panel, why renewables, why energy efficiency. I think everyone in this room has their own reasons, and that's why you're here. So I'm going to kind of skip through these, but essentially, you have the ability to lower your operating costs, control energy costs by hedging on projects, which results in potential green appeal and visibility, which could lead to advanced leasability and tenure with your tenants. And like I said, I think everyone understands that. There's other reasons as well as minimizing pollution and job creations and foreign oil issues. What I want to do is get into a project that that we had a major role in as a law firm. Backing up, Prince LaBelle is a mid-size, full-service law firm in Boston, Massachusetts, with a renewable energy practice group. We've been practicing renewable energies for a couple of years. We spun it from our real estate and telecommunications infrastructure development services. So we're a traditional law firm that provides traditional services in this field, as well as we can take a project from completion to conception, which are the two projects that I want to focus on because those are the two projects that I know the most about. The first project here is a rooftop, 200 kilowatt rooftop installation in Chelsea, Massachusetts. I'm going to keep looking down here because we actually have a module down, a video camera. I mean a TV down here, so I can see what I'm looking at. That is it's about a 60,000 square foot mixed use building with two tenants inside there. They're perishable food storage tenants, so high users of energy. Like I said, the building is located in Chelsea, Massachusetts, in the NSTAR jurisdiction. The rooftop space available was about 30,000 square foot. We were able to install a 200 kilowatt solar PV on that roof using about 850 PV modules, 2 inverters, and it's a ballast mounted system at 10-degree fixed tilt. The production is estimated, or is actually exceeding the estimated production of about 250,000 kilowatt hours yearly. This has been operational since November, so about a year, and it offloads about 60% of the onload site. Now, the important stuff on the right side of the screen is the financial returns and paybacks. So this is about a $1.1 million project. Module pricing has come way down since then, so the price for a 200 kilowatt system would be a lot less, maybe 20 to 30% less. But their returns are pretty significant. In the first year, their utility savings, which is actually the sale of the power by the building owner to its tenants, is about $30,000 a year. At year 10, the cumulative utility savings and revenue to the building owner, when you consider the available incentives currently and in the past at that time, we're going to put these folks in, they're going to be able to pay back their initial investment as well as make an additional $750,000 within the first 10 years. And then in year 20, you're going to be north of $1 million in return. The IRRs look really well, look really good. You can see them there, and the payback is going to be in year 3. Now, with the current incentives and I'll get into some of the SREC and net metering incentives, the SREC market is doing really well right now for 2011 SREC. So the building owner is doing really well. and we're exceeding those projections. This is, again, and maybe I didn't mention it, this is a system that was purchased by the building owner, and so what we call a host-owned system, and sells the power to its tenants. The next project is a project, that's just the footprint of the building and how the module is laid out on its roof. The next project here, this is a 1 megawatt ground-mounted solar installation. It's actually in Leicester, Massachusetts. This project is still in development. We're in the tail end of the permitting stage, and we expect to be placed in service at the end of this year, probably at the beginning of next year. But we expect all our permits within a month and to start construction, and our interconnection application to be approved within a month. So this is, like I said, it's a 1 megawatt DC solar installation. It's about 4,200 PV modules, 2 inverters. It's going to take up about 5 or 6 acres of land. The land it's an existing farm in Leicester. It's cleared for the most part. There's some trees that need to be cleared for shadowing. Estimated production is 1.2 million kilowatt hours a year, and through the Massachusetts net metering regulations, we are going to sell the power, or the credits created by National Grid of the power, to entities that are in the area. One entity being also a sponsor here, which is the Hanover Theater. So the Hanover Theater is going to take advantage of the power produced indirectly, the power produced by the system here. The returns are to the right again, and just backing up, this system is not what we call a host-owned system. It's not owned by the property owner. This is owned by a third-party investor. So how we got into it, our client, a third-party investor, came to us and said, we want to invest in solar. What do we need to do? You guys do it. So we sourced this deal. They came up with the project cost, which is on a 1 megawatt project is rule of thumb is typically $4 million. It can be a little less than that these days, especially the last 6 months with Europe's decrease in renewable building. So the module increases, supply is increased, and so the module pricing is decreased. So we can get that down a little bit. But essentially, those are the projected cumulative returns. They're going to see a payback in year 4. Say, why isn't it year 3 or even better? Because the other case study, smaller project, well, the other case study took advantage of an additional incentive that's no longer there, and we can get into that real quick. So those are the projected returns. Again, very strong projections, and because of what Massachusetts has done in connection with its current incentives, we're very confident that we'll meet those projections. In terms of, and that's just a layout of the farm and how we're utilizing the back end of the farm with the 1 megawatt project. That gives us room for another megawatt actually, which would be phase 2 of this project, which we haven't implemented yet. So in terms of how this works, or how this impacts positively the environment, it's just really numbers. These 2 projects combined have an effect of reducing carbon dioxide by about 56 million pounds, which is equivalent to planting 132,000 mature trees, or equal to 108 million vehicle miles not traveled. So what I want to put on a bumper sticker on my car, even though it's a small SUV and it's not a hybrid, is, I love SREX, or I love net metering, or something that says, hey, I'm doing something for the environment as well, but not necessarily driving a hybrid car. I just have to point this out. The top right picture, those are my kids. So that's another reason why I'm in the business. Not just to make a career out of it, but to show those guys, hey, look what I did. And they've heard it a few times, and they're already sick of it at ages 6 and 3. So,
just wait.
Yeah.
It works.
So, all right, how do we structure these things? How do we get these returns to where we think they're going to need to be? Well, there's a bunch of incentives that we looked at. With the Chelsea project, and I'll skip to the state incentive, which is no longer here, which was the solar stimulus, or Commonwealth Solar Stimulus 2. That was basically a rebate for any projects below 200 kilowatts. That ended about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And that provided on a $1 million project about $160,000. So then you look at, okay, what additional incentives were there? We're going to skip to two federal incentives and then go back to a couple of state incentives. The federal incentives that we took advantage of, they're basically an option of two in connection with the federal incentives. One is an ITC, or an investment tax credit, and two is a federal cash grant. The ITC is basically a credit on the taxes, on your taxes, or the entity's taxes, worth 30% of the project cost. Now, some people can take advantage of that, some people can't. Developers that don't have that tax liability can't take advantage of that. So feds understood that a long time ago, and they created what they call the 1603, or the federal cash grant. That basically says, okay, in lieu of the ITC, we're going to give you a cash grant valued at 30% of the project cost within 60 days from the date that you apply or that you're placed in service, whatever's last. So that allows many other projects to move forward. The sun sets on that incentive at the end of this year. I think everyone in this room probably knows that, and there's a huge rush to get projects to a point to be able to take advantage of that incentive. What's that point? Well, it's essentially the 1603 says you have to be placed, you have to have started construction of your system. There's also a safe harbor regulation that says, well, you don't have to start construction, but you have to pay for at least 5% of the project cost. What does that mean? That's a conversation that would take probably about another hour to discuss. But essentially, you need to show the federal government qualified that you've paid for 5% of the project cost by the end of the year. And then you'd have to file your application for the grant by October of 2012. So what happens in 2012? Currently, if the federal grant doesn't get extended, the investment tax credit will continue. For solar PV, the ITC will continue through 2016. For small wind, I believe it's 2016 as well. And for large wind, it's going to be 2013, the end of 2013. So large wind is on a tighter time frame. That's the federal ITC and grant. The federal bonus depreciation, currently through the end of 2011, you can take advantage of 100% bonus depreciation, or you can depreciate 100% of your project cost minus half of the value of the grant. So it's really 85% of your total project cost. The year that you place it in service, or the first year of the system being placed in service. The problem is your system needs to be placed in service by the end of this year to take advantage of that project. What's placed in service means, what does that mean? That means that an IRS agent can go over and flip the switch and it's going to be producing power. Not necessarily that it's completely interconnected, but that it operates. So that's a big step for projects that are just getting underway now. Depending upon the project, that's going to be tough to meet. What happens in 2012, that 100% bonus depreciation decreases to 50% bonus depreciation. So still a significant incentive. You can depreciate 50% of the project value in year one, and then the years 2 through 6, you would take still an accelerated, what they call MACRS, modified accelerated cost recovery system depreciation. So you can still take advantage of that. After 2012, then it goes to a straight MACRS schedule, which is more like 20% year 1, 30% year 2, and then equal years 3 through 6. So getting into the mass incentives, and I know I'm starting to get late here, but these are the more complicated ones. Getting back to, so the two projects I talked about, the ground-mounted system is going to take advantage of both those incentives, both those federal incentives. It's not going to take advantage of the solar stimulus 2 program because it's over 200 kilowatts and that program doesn't exist. But the two incentives that both the projects are taking advantage of is, one, the solar carve-out, or SREC program, under the Massachusetts RPS program, and the second one is what they call the net metering allocation program. So solar carve-out, solar renewable energy certificates, or SRECs, it's basically a market-based production incentive. And essentially the way it is created is, for every 1 megawatt hour produced equals 1 SREC, or solar renewable energy certificate. Through DOER and the DPU, the state has created basically a ceiling and a floor. They've created a ceiling by requiring the investor-owned utilities to purchase these SRECs, and if they don't, then they are subject to an alternative compliance payment, or an ACP. That payment currently right now is $550 per SREC, or per 1 megawatt hour. The floor is created because the state has taken it a step further and said, all right, in the event that there's a supply or surplus, of SRECs, we're gonna guarantee that those will be sold at some point, and they can enter into what they call the clearinghouse, and the clearing rate on that is $300 an hour per SREC. So you got your floor at $550 and your ceiling at $300. It costs to get into that, or opt into that clearinghouse at 5%, so it's really a $285 floor. Currently, SRECs on the open market are trading, as of yesterday, at $535. We traded the Chelsea SRECs in Q2 at $535. Those guys are very excited. This is not anything that has a sunset provision in it, although your project can take advantage of the SREC program for 10 years. Problem is, there's a floor and a ceiling, so it's market driven. The more SRECs that are out there, the lower the value of the SRECs will be. Hopefully, what Massachusetts has done, which other states haven't, is they've created this artificial ceiling floor, so that hopefully the bottom doesn't drop out of the market. And it may take more than a year, but you'll be able to sell your SRECs at $285 at the lowest. So we model our pro formas. We're showing a $285 floor, so that because of the way that this is set up. Net metering, another incentive in Massachusetts, which is even more complicated than the SREC program, and Barbara alluded to what the DPU is doing and constantly doing in the net metering world. But essentially, traditional net metering, if you produce more power than is needed on site, the power doesn't go away. That power can be credited back to that on-site's bill at the retail rate. Or it used to be at the wholesale rate, now it's at the retail rate. What the DPU has done through the Green Communities Act has said, well, let's make that credit assignable, or allow the system owners to allocate that power, or the credit of that power, to another entity or another account or bill in that jurisdiction, in that IOUs or investor-owned utilities jurisdiction and load zone. So, for example, in the Leicester 1 megawatt ground-mounted installation, the system owners there are producing power, and that power is going to go into the national grid. National Grid says, where do you want the credits of this power allocated? And we've said to the Hanover Theater. So the Hanover Theater are going to realize credits on their actual bill. It's a retail rate credit. And then how does the system owner get value from that? Well, that's between the system owner and I'll leave it at that. That's between the system owner and Hanover. But Hanover's going to see an advantage to that. I think that's it in terms of the incentives out there and their changing. SREC, let me just go back. The net metering concerns or sunsets, there's no sunsets there, but there's a cap. And there's a question asked about the 1% cap. That's why I alluded to Barbara and DPU are working on that, working on the certainty of that, and that's to come. That's what we do, and that's my contact information, and I can make these slides available to folks out there. Thanks, sorry about that. Going over.
Thanks, Adam. Okay, so we got a major multi-unit housing project that did a huge investment. We've got tremendous expertise, obviously, in the solar area and in the wind area. So I'm going to go straight to the floor for some questions, and the questions are probably going to be person-specific, but yes, in the back of the room.
My question is to each or any of you as to how many jobs were created with your particular projects, or if you redeployed people currently working for you, and how that worked. And our keynote speaker addressed an increase in jobs in the community in the past couple of years.
I can say at Meridian that we've actually hired on a few people to help out with our wind and solar projects. And actually at Meridian Associates, we're up to the highest number of employees we've ever had. And it's attributed to green energy.
With Prince Lobel, we have, it's not really a matter of creating jobs, it's saving jobs. We have a large real estate practice group, a large telecommunications practice group. Both of those industries have decreased in production, and we're able to roll a number of our attorneys into the kind of clean tech, renewable energy sector. I was one of the first, and now I think we have 4 or 5 or 6, actually 6, involved with the work that we do. From a solar PV installer scenario, I know that the folks we use, the engineering, procurement, and construction solar installers we use, they have created numbers and numbers of jobs in Massachusetts over the past 2 years. I know specifically that the installer that we're using for the Leicester project, they hired a couple people just to help us with that project. So I don't know the exact number, but I know that from a personal standpoint, we're saving jobs on our end.
And given that we spent about $15 million worth of construction, where we're talking about contractors for plumbing, electrical, certainly there's all kinds of employment there that was associated with that, plus there's also the maintenance on these systems as well. So I can't give you a specific number of jobs, but you know, based on that much spending for construction, there's the people that actually build the boilers that are in state. Thermal Solutions, now Thermal Solutions is not in state, but heat transfer systems, people that make the Modcons and Munchkins are in fact in state. There's a lot of local sourcing that we did for products that we did. So there's both the manufacturer of the products, the contractors that did the installations as well.
Okay, additional questions? Yes, right up front. Bruce.
Adam, just I'm curious, those projects were private developer projects? They weren't through the communities?
That's right, privately funded.
And were they done as of right, or did they require special permit?
The rooftop installation in Chelsea was as of right. It was just a building permit with an electrical permit. The Leicester project does require permitting.
And were either of those projects in communities? I don't have my list of those that are green communities.
Neither, but I know that the town of Leicester is trying to become a green community, and they have, as we are going through the permitting process, they are trying to implement as of right bylaws and amending their regulations as we, it's going to happen at the same time they provide, hopefully give us our approval.
Yes, additional questions? We've got time for a couple more. Sir. Why do you need an attorney if you hire Meridian?
See, I knew that question was going to get asked.
Well, let's start with the Meridian answer.
You don't need to. No, I'm kidding. At Meridian, we don't do any anything that happens on the back end of permitting, which is the negotiation for RECs, the negotiation for net metering, and I can tell you any time that in my professional career, I do not do zoning boards. I can't determine what a hardship is. I can only draw the plans, go to the meetings, and answer questions, but as I'm not an attorney, I can't establish hardship. So you would need an attorney for those types of activities.
Okay, any additional questions in the room? Okay, we are exactly, wow, this group is really cooperating. We're at 10:25. The agenda says we're supposed to be at 10:25. Let's thank our panel for some really thoughtful, deep presentations, sharing their ideas. We now have it's a 5-minute break, and then we're going to talk about the future of energy. So 5 minutes, and Chris, is that correct? 5 minutes, we'll be back back in this room. So quick break. Thank you. Without further ado, let me introduce senior reporter and editor of our Metro West 495, senior reporter for the Worcester Business Journal, editor of our Metro West 495 business publication, Brandon Butler. Brandon.
Thank you, Peter. And good morning to everyone. I hope that everyone has enjoyed this morning's panel so far. And in our next panel, we're going to be sort of asking you guys to pull out our collective crystal balls, take a look into the future of the green energy industry. You know, so far today we've heard about the basics of energy efficiency and the green industry, as well as some innovative new energy saving projects. Now we're going to look towards tomorrow. What's the future of this industry? What are the key innovations in the green industry? And how can we ensure that American businesses are a part of it? On our panel today, we have 3 experts in this field, and I'll introduce them briefly. Howard McHugh is owner of Building Smart Software of North Andover and is a registered professional engineer with more than 4 decades of experience, specifically related to the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, or HVAC systems. He's the author of 1 book and more than 400 articles, including the Tomorrow's Environment column published in Engineering Systems magazine since 1992. He currently works as a consultant and software developer. Jim Walker, down at the end here, is a professional engineer and director of the solar grid tie projects for Ameresco, where he's responsible for developing and building Ameresco's solar photovoltaic grid business. He's a 30-year veteran of the energy industry, and he's a former senior vice president at X Energy and a former director of global utility industry sales at Sun Microsystems. He's also one of the co-founders of the MIT Enterprise Forum's Ignite Clean Energy Business Plan competition, and he recently served on the executive board of directors as a member of the MIT Enterprise Forum, and he also received his MBA from MIT. And finally, we have Cynthia Arcate. She's the president and CEO of Boston-based Power Options. The organization helps more than 500 nonprofit organizations in the Commonwealth spend approximately $200 million annually to consolidate their energy buying influence. She's a former director of business development in New York and New England for Comverge Incorporated, and she's a former director of and she's a former deputy commissioner for programs at the Massachusetts Division of Energy Resources. She oversaw the state's electric and gas energy efficiency programs and administration of the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standards, which we've heard some about today. She's also worked at National Grid and for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So thanks very much to all of you for being here. So let's move on to our discussion at this point. And I want to let everyone know that towards the end of the session, we'll open it up for questions. So be sure to be thinking of those during the sessions. And towards the end, we'll give everyone a chance to ask any questions that they may have. So I wanted to start with Jim here. You know, solar has been in the news a lot recently, specifically because of some bankruptcies of some high-profile businesses in the industry. This is not just in Massachusetts, but nationwide. Evergreen Solar, just down the street in Marlborough, and California-based Solyndra were both victims of this industry recently. So, Jim, I was wondering what you sort of see as the future of the solar production and innovation in America compared to some overseas competition, and how can we make sure that America is a place where solar is not just made but adopted?
Well, thanks. There are several parts to your question. First, let me reassure everyone that solar development is continuing quite strong in the U.S. And as far from a competitive standpoint, the U.S. leads in venture capital funding for solar PV. In last quarter, third quarter, there was $372 million of VC funding for solar, $1.4 billion of VC funding this year so far through third quarter. 92% of that was in the United States. So the U.S. leads with ideas. What the U.S. does not lead with is money for implementing those ideas, and that's China. China leads with the money. I met with, 2 weeks ago, a venture capital person from Shanghai. And he was telling me that in Shanghai, his company and other companies that are enticed to come to China are enticed for free land or very inexpensive land, free buildings or very inexpensive buildings, and other incentives. It's not a labor difference, it's a capital difference. It's a difference of funding the buildings and making it very easy for them to locate and operate and export their products from China. So what he told me was China has abundance of money, and it has decided strategically that it's going to be a world leader in solar energy. And therefore it's putting money to make that happen. But he told me they do not have ideas. He said if you take the top scientists, the top graduates from the Chinese engineering schools, and you put them in a room and you ask them for ideas, he told me like this, you'll get 0 ideas. You go to the United States and you have lots of ideas. And I can talk in a few moments about some of those interesting ideas. But the ideas are being generated here. That's why the VC funding is happening here, because they're funding good ideas. With respect to Solyndra, there are 3 companies that went bankrupt in August. Solyndra was one of them, Evergreen was another, and SpectraWatt in New York was another. This is a developing business, and the VCs understand, and the government understands, everybody understands, that when you're developing new products, there are going to be some companies that are going to win in the marketplace and some companies that aren't. It's just the nature of the beast of early development. But in any event, it's very strong in the United States, and Massachusetts has very strong new companies that are started that I can talk about if you want.
Sure. Yeah, I want to turn to Cynthia next. Cynthia, I think, can talk about sort of the end market for some of these green innovations that are taking place. So we heard from Jim that there are a lot of ideas in America, and we do have a lot of clean tech companies and innovative technologies coming about. I'm wondering if there's a demand for these new ideas, and basically, are consumers ready for this? So, Cynthia, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the barriers to adoption of new technologies and sort of is the end market ready for these?
Sure. I think it's important to differentiate between commercialization of technology and R&D of technology, and what's happening in the solar panel industry is, in my view, sort of a shakeout of a natural shakeout of a very robust market right now, and it's not reflective at all, as Jim indicated, as to the desirability of solar and the market for solar. Power Options issued an RFQ last spring to develop a solar program for our 500 members, and we received 15 proposals that were the largest integrators of solar in the country, really, probably even in the world. It's a very robust market. There's a lot of capital out there. What we've discovered is that what keeps some projects, or a lot of projects, from not being built is access to capital. In our case, our members are nonprofits, so they don't have the tax appetite that you heard about in the previous presentation about the benefits. So we have to find a developer who has a tax equity partner who can take those tax benefits and use that to benefit our members. So that's what we're working on, but it's a very robust market. I think it's very exciting. We have been developing a pipeline of our membership, and we're up to over 40 projects, totaling somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 20 megawatts that I think are really very ready to go. And Massachusetts is becoming sort of the place to go for the solar industry. They've been in California, they've been in New Jersey, where the SREC market crashed, and now everyone's coming to Massachusetts. And so there's tremendous opportunity here, and I think the first in line are going to get the greatest benefit from that. But I don't see what happened with Evergreen or Solyndra at all a reflection of what's going on in the market. The barriers for customers, I think, are threefold. One is access to capital. I talked about that already. That's true with energy efficiency as well, and any other kind of new technology, is where are they going to get the money to make the investment? The second thing is most of my customers and customers that I've met with in my whole career are very challenged by how do they do the due diligence on the vendor that's coming to them. And quite frankly, there are a lot of snake oil salesmen out there right now in the solar industry. Everybody who's an electrician and a roofer is suddenly a solar expert. And they're making proposals to customers constantly. And my customers, the reason we launched this effort to develop a program is because that's what we do best. We make an investment in the lawyers and the consultants, and we do the due diligence and develop a program for our members so they don't have to do that. And most people, most customers don't have that kind of expertise or access to money to get the expertise that they need. And the third thing is just the quality of their own technology on their facilities to begin with. I saw this when I was trying to sell demand response. I mean, there's a sort of a patchwork of energy management systems. If you got a campus like a university, they've got EMS systems in some buildings, but not all of them. They don't talk to one another. And so to really make any kind of advancement to use a lot of this technology, you have to have systems that work together, talk to each other, and that's a very significant investment that only the customer can do, really. I have a customer, for example, this is a classic case. She has solar on the roof, an oversized cogen system. It's an assisted living facility. She has no EMS system. Nothing talks to each other. Nothing works together. When she's got the solar on, she's got to back off the cogen. When the cogen's running, because it's oversized, she has to back off the solar. I mean, it's a mess. And that is very typical of what customers do. So I'd say the last thing, and this is probably the biggest barrier that I see, is getting their own systems to work together.
Sure. Howard, I wanted to turn to you. I think you could have a sort of boots on the ground perspective here. You have experience doing major energy efficiency projects, and in fact, you helped design a state-of-the-art HVAC system for the State Transportation Building in downtown Boston in the 1970s. It's currently used today. What do you think are some of the lessons and takeaways we can see we can take from projects over the years that allow for market adoption of these latest advances in technology, do you think?
Well, one of the things that I look at is everybody's looking for a better mousetrap, so everybody's looking for that new, innovative way. But there's a lot of technology that's been applied in the past that has worked, but for whatever reason hasn't been followed up with other opportunities. And there's some technology out there that could be done better. And my experience and what I do is troubleshoot projects that the owner's perception was it isn't working as intended.
Oh, okay.
Much better.
So I come in there to help troubleshoot and improve these systems. So as you look forward to how can we save energy and what is a new technology that'll achieve it, I really look to the clients and say, well, wait a minute, why don't you look at what you got for us, and let's make all that work fine. An example of that was a university here in the Boston area that had a campus of about 30 buildings, and the chill water system, they were sending water out to all these different buildings, and as a rule of thumb, the pumping horsepower to get the water there and back was about 0.3 horsepower per ton. They now run that operation at about 0.07 horsepower per ton. So they've cut it by 75%, depending how you want to look at it. Their peak energy for years was, on a design day, was 2,800 tons of air conditioning. They now run that campus, in addition to adding 2 more buildings, around 1,400 to 1,500 tons. That didn't mean the facility people weren't doing their job. They just didn't have all the tools needed for measuring and so forth to help them improve their system. So going forward, looking at what are the opportunities? I always look at, you need to go back before you look for a better mousetrap and improve what you already have, because we have more existing buildings than we have new buildings. And to touch on one of the things on the solar is, I personally think solar heat should be mandated for domestic hot water, because to me it's pretty inexpensive to put for domestic hot water, and we know it works. So I think we need to sometimes push owners, maybe make it even an energy building code or something to mandate certain things. Same with photovoltaic. There was an engineering study, and I won't say which college or university it was here, but some years back, that said you really should have a black roof, not a white roof in New England, because there's more heating requirements than cooling. But you see so many roofs with white. But if you had came up with a product that was a photovoltaic roof for everybody and mandated the roof be that and it's black, you're going to automatically get electrical savings in the process. So some of the things I think we need to push along because we know they work, and they can be more cost effective if we really concentrated on maybe fine-tuning the numbers a little, but really mandating some of the real basics.
Jim, I was wondering if maybe you could respond to one of the things that Cynthia mentioned about that access to capital and sort of how businesses can try to overcome that, and sort of what maybe even Amoresco is doing to sort of help businesses do that. And I was also interested in hearing about sort of innovations, and I know you did help start the clean energy competition at MIT, and sort of how we can encourage more innovation in this green energy. So if you want to talk about either of those topics.
Okay, well, let me just mention the capital part of it that Cynthia mentioned. And so much what Cynthia mentioned, our solar projects that we have in the Commonwealth are for municipalities and government agencies, because they can't, as Cynthia mentioned, they can't take advantage of the tax benefits. And so we can take advantage of the tax benefits and provide that to the municipalities in terms of a kilowatt hour saving. So that's why it works quite well. They get the main concern that customers have is they are very interested in solar. They may not have the capital, but ultimately they want a lower cost for electricity or a stable cost of electricity. And that's a key consideration for them. Without capital, they go to companies like Amoresco for that capital, for the project, and get a kilowatt hour savings that provides them with the savings. So that's the benefit to both parties. With respect to technology, the Commonwealth is blessed with great universities. It's not only MIT, UMass Lowell has a solar research center, Worcester Polytech has a fuel cell center, UMass Amherst has a wind center, and other universities are doing great research. Now, this research is showing up in new businesses. And I'd like to just mention a couple new businesses that are in Massachusetts and that you may have heard about. One is 1366 Technologies, which is in Lexington, Mass. They just received a $3 million grant from Department of Energy, and they received a $150 million loan guarantee. Even after Solyndra, this problem with Solyndra, they received that loan guarantee. They have a technology that will reduce the manufacturing costs for solar PV and increase the efficiency of the cell, and they're located in Lexington, Massachusetts. Another company is Magnolia Solar in Woburn, Massachusetts, and they're working on a new technology that improves the efficiency of solar cells. A totally different idea on solar is a company in Maynard, Massachusetts called Nanoptech. And Nanoptech was really spun out of research that was done at Polaroid. And that research shows that if you have a material and light shines on this material where there's water, it'll break the water into hydrogen and oxygen, and so the sun can produce hydrogen that can be used for hydrogen fuel cells. And MIT also just announced what they call a new technology that does something very similar, the artificial leaf. But it's the same idea that sun will break the water down into hydrogen and oxygen. And just recently, another new technology that came out of MIT is the printable solar panel that you can print on a piece of paper. And if you can print on a piece of paper, that's going to substantially reduce the cost. Outside of Massachusetts, there's some great technologies. Dow Chemical has announced that it'll soon be going commercial with a solar technology that is built right into the roofing tiles that are used on homes. And we have a company in Massachusetts, Kates-Garnick, in Lowell, Massachusetts, that also has a technology that can fit on buildings. So Massachusetts, in terms of leading, is a leader in ideas, and it's also a leader, as Cynthia mentioned, in implementation of solar, which helps the whole ecosystem. And thanks very much to Governor Patrick and the legislature. We have the SREC program. We have other programs that are stimulating solar in Massachusetts.
And just a quick follow-up for that. I mean, do you see these technologies that are being developed? I mean, are they getting to the marketplace? Do you expect they'll get to the marketplace? Would a company like Ameresco, incorporate these products into your offerings, or?
Sure. The time frame, energy is different than software. Someone can create a software product and go to market right away. And with a solar panel, it takes years, because before our customers will allow a panel on the roof, we have to show them that it meets UL certification, that it meets certification from California. It meets a whole set of certification, and that it has a 20-year warranty. So receiving these certifications, improving the warranty, takes years and years of testing and proof. So it's terrific that we're generating these new technologies. I would expect that they will show up in the marketplace, but it'll take years of testing and proof. The electric industry demands high reliability, anything involved with electricity, and therefore going from early product development to out in the field takes years of testing and certification.
Sure. Cynthia, I wanted to go back to one other thing you mentioned about the sort of allowing systems to talk to each other. And we hear a lot about smart grid systems as well. I was wondering if you could talk about what impact the smart grid technologies could have sort of on the end users, and how, as a business, you can make sure that your systems are sort of integrated together and talking to each other in an efficient way.
Sure. I think it's important to distinguish between smart grid and smart meters. A lot of people use them interchangeably. Rita Moran's smiling at me as I'm saying this from National Grid. You know what I'm talking about. People use them interchangeably. They're very different, and that you don't need one to do the other. I think that smart grid is maybe farther out there in terms of its development, and the cost justification for it is just not there yet from a distribution company perspective. On the electric industry, part of the challenge we have in New England is that most of the electric utilities converted all of their meters to remote readings about 10 years ago, and if you hear about smart grid being installed around the country, it's usually in a situation where the utility still had meter readers walking around reading them, and you have all that labor cost that cost justify the installation. That's my pet peeve. So, but I think that there's lots that can be done on the customer side of the meter, and even installation. I mean, most meters today for commercial customers are already interval meters that give that 5-minute pulse that's necessary for them to participate in the wholesale energy market, to do other innovative things in terms of participating in demand response and things like that. So you don't really necessarily need that today to take advantage of these kinds of things, but you do need things on your side of the meter. And there are demand response companies that can manage your load for you remotely in a network operating center located 300 or 400 or 500,000 miles away, 1,000 miles away, and you can participate in the ISO New England demand response program. You can even participate in the energy market on a daily, real-time basis, and there are lots of end-use customers that do that. The challenge is to get more of them to do that. There's a recent decision that was made by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission saying that the ISO New England has to allow demand response to participate in the daily energy market. And so over the next couple of years, those rules are being devised. But it's a real technical challenge to be able to accurately measure whether the customer is actually reducing load or not. And that's the big challenge, is what's that baseline. And that you do need some pretty sophisticated equipment to do that.
Mm. And so again, sort of on the end user side, how do you make sure that your systems are interacting with each other? And I don't know, Howard, if you maybe want to talk about that at all as well. But I mean, sort of the best ways to make sure that you're sort of getting the best bang for your buck.
Well, the whole idea of open protocol is becoming much more available and more for people to understand, and we're involved with one right now at campus, which allows them to, once we get through the initial phases of this project, then incorporate demand-side management and other various ways to manage your energy, keep the energy down. But allowing the systems to talk, as it was noted, the open protocol on the owner's side is important to make sure the systems talk building by building, so that you're under control of every building, and then from there you can then talk outside to these firms who are monitoring your energy, or you're doing it in-house. But one of the things I see that in building automation is that people spend an awful lot of money on automation, and they'll think that, okay, we can just sub this out to someone. But my analogy is like buying an automobile, putting the thing in cruise control, but not having a driver. You really need someone to be assigned to managing in-house, as well as subbing out what you want, whatever is the most cost-effective way. But you really need some expertise in-house. And today, it's so much easier to do than in years past. So as you go forward, I think open protocol inside and outside the campus or a hospital or whatever is going to be much more achievable. And I've seen it in a couple of occasions where I've said, get someone in-house to run the computer, and it doesn't have to be a graduate engineer. You can get someone with a more hands-on technical person learning on the job, maybe going to school nights to do this. But the return on investment of that person is probably under a year. And when one owner said to me, what can we do to make our facility more cost effective? I said, well, everybody but this person is going to cost you money, because they're going to go out and they're going to change filters and they're going to do the job you have to do to maintain the equipment. But this one person is going to be able to save you money. They're going to be able to reduce your operating costs. And in one case, and specifically this particular client, they reduced their energy within the first 3 years by 25%, which represented over a couple of $1 million in energy per year. So there's technology out there you got to be able to talk the talk from your side as the owner, as well as interact with those organizations that can help you from the outside, remote monitoring your energy, or even providing remote continuous commissioning of your systems.
Yeah, Jim or Cynthia, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. We heard earlier as well from Bruce Buckby with World Energy about one of the keys is monitoring these systems. Do you get the sense that customers are engaged after they make that initial investment, and how can we make sure that these systems stay efficient after the initial investment? Jim, you want to?
Sure. With respect to a solar PV system, our customers, we install what's referred to as a data acquisition system. Part of it is that we have to meter the amount of electric generation. But the other part of it is that many of our customers have schools, and the PV systems are on schools. So they want to also be able to monitor it and have educational programs. So we developed working with the City of Newburyport, a curricula from grades kindergarten through 12th grade. And the curricula fits in with the state guidelines. We've worked it out with the teachers. But basically, the curricula, they receive the data continuously. They go to a online website, so they can monitor it. They can see it themselves. The facility people can see it, and all the science teachers can see it, and the students can see it. And then there's a curricula built around it, so they can ask the questions if they want. We saw this many days of sunlight. What's the prediction of how much kilowatt hours were produced on the solar PV system on the school building? And they can run the calculations as part of their science program and then come back. And I imagine if it didn't work out right, we would hear about it. So, so yes, there's continual monitoring, and it's very important. The meter for us is crucial for letting us know how much kilowatt hours were produced and what we're going to charge for that, and also for selling the SRECs, and that's all verified by the state through the Mass Clean Energy Center. So there's a substantial amount of metering and verification at numerous levels for solar PV systems in the Commonwealth.
I would say in general, for really large institutions, they have people on staff that do what Howard was suggesting you need to do all the time. But for most customers, it's a real challenge to stay on top of how things are working. And that's why I think performance contracting, some kind of performance guarantee from a vendor is always a good idea, because that puts the onus on them to make sure things are working the way they're supposed to. Ameresco does a lot of performance contracting. There are plenty of ESCOs around that do that kind of work. So I think that's real important to do. And even on solar, it's not a bad idea to try to get some kind of performance guarantee. Although the vendor will tell you, I already have an incentive to make sure it works because I don't get paid unless it does, I still think it's a good idea to be looking at performance guarantees. On solar, I have to tell you that my experience in trying to develop our program, when I first started it, I thought, oh, my big concern was signing a deal with someone who's got the Betamax of the solar industry. And the only people who are laughing are the people probably my age, and I bet that table there doesn't even know what I'm talking about. But a Betamax, you know, we all remember, well, we don't all remember, but it was before there were VCRs. And what I've discovered is that the thing that's interesting about solar to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, is that while you may be worried about advancements in technology happening currently or even immediately after you sign your deal, the thing about solar is that it's going to keep working. You know, we probably all have seen solar panels that were put up in the 70s, and they're still working. They still do what they're supposed to do. And so if it's economic for you on the day you sign it, it's going to remain economic for you. It may mean you don't have the most advanced technology on your roof, but it's still going to work. And so I think you should get comfort from that. I certainly have in terms of trying to negotiate our deal. You try to get the best technology you can get at the time based on the economics that you're looking at the time, and you just do it. You just have to sort of take a breath and jump. And so I think that's a real important thing to understand about solar. I wouldn't say that about all technologies. I mean, there are lots of EMS systems and energy control technology that doesn't work well with other systems, and the open architecture is exactly right. You want to get a system that's going to work no matter what you do, no matter who you work with in terms of demand response or even your energy supply. I mean, that's the other thing. You got to integrate this all into your energy supply procurement, and you want something that's going to work all together.
And one of those things that helps a lot of people take that leap are the incentives that we've heard a lot about. And I'm interested in hearing your perspective on sort of the future of these incentives, and as this technology also becomes more affordable, how those sort of two interact, maybe incentives go down, but the cost of investing in these also goes down. So I was interested in hearing from either Cynthia or Jim about that. I did want to also remind folks that I would love to hear some questions from the audience as well, maybe after this one. So I don't know if Jim or Cynthia, you want to talk about what you sort of see as the future of these incentives from the government?
About 5 years ago, I participated in a meeting at the MTC, Massachusetts Technology Collaborative, and this was before the incentives were developed in Massachusetts. Maybe it was longer than that. And we were with a group of government and business leaders talking about how to kickstart the solar PV in Massachusetts, and particularly economic development for solar PV and growth of jobs for solar PV in Massachusetts. And what we came to the conclusion is that we did need incentives, but we saw that ultimately those incentives would create demand for products, which would create economies of scale, which would drive down the price. There are three components to the price of solar. You could think about, really four, but let's talk about three of them. The first are the solar panels, the second is the labor, and the third are the other materials. Solar panels, just this year, the crystalline for solar panels has gone down between 22 and 36%, depending upon what country it is. On a cents per kilowatt hour basis, it's gone down about 42%. This is just for the panel part. So panel prices have been driven down, and this is really thanks very much to the efficiency of the Chinese suppliers. They have really driven down the price, and that has benefited people who are installing the systems. And so the idea that creating more demand will increase economies of scale and drive down costs has been proven. The other two cost components are labor and balance of system materials. And balance system materials are the wires, conduits, the inverters, the combiner boxes, those types of things. Those prices do not change very much. We don't expect to see wire as a commodity, and we don't see a lot of change in price. And labor prices are, they don't change that much, and they don't move that much. So the main component has been panels. The next component to attack is how to make the labor more efficient, and that will bring down the price. The overall price has been going down, and that is reflected in policy by having the incentives go down. The incentives are planned to go down over the next 10 years. In terms of the SREC prices, they're built in to go down. So there is this matching, and everyone is working towards, the Department of Energy is funding the Sunshot program. This is what one of our companies in Massachusetts received a grant from, the 1366 Technologies. And that Sunshot program is to drive down the price by 75%, the cost of solar. So a lot of people are working on it. I think it's very exciting for the industry and also for consumers to see this alternative of having solar energy being more cost affordable with less incentives. It is happening, and it's going to continue to happen.
Mm. Cynthia, do you have a perspective on this and sort of how important these incentives are? And I know some of the federal ones are set to expire at the end of the year. Do you expect more to come out, and how important are they?
I think we're in a really unique window of opportunity in terms of incentives, and now's the time to act. My guess is that it's highly unlikely that the 1603 cash grants will be extended, given the predilection of the Republicans on the House side. Post-Solyndra, I think that is going to put a damper on extension of federal incentives, at least for the next year or two. On the state side, I think that the SREC program is very robust, and I'm cautiously optimistic that it will remain in place the way it is, regardless of discussions in the legislature or changes that might come about to the Green Communities Act. I do have a lot of concern about net metering credits, and I have told my members, don't count on it lasting very long. And the reason for that is that, think about it from a rate perspective, and I can try to not to get too much in the weeds of rates, but for every credit a customer gets on their bill, the rest of the customers in that service territory are paying for it. And these net metering credits are quite lucrative. They are a combination of not only the avoided basic service rate, but it's the transmission, distribution, and all the other the stranded cost charge on your bill. Some customers are getting net metering credits of anywhere from 15 to 17 cents a kilowatt hour. That has to get, and that's why there's a cap, because there was a concern about the rate impact to all other customers. We're either going to see that credit go away or some other way of recovering delivery charges. You might end up with an increased customer charge. We're talking about bypass. That's really what this is. And you think about any other industry that had bypass, they have to figure out some way to get the money from somewhere else. So I think the net metering credits are short-lived, and I can tell you that every developer I've been talking to for the last 5 months has told me that they're not relying on it. They know that there's a regulatory risk here, and if you get approached by someone with a net metering credit deal, I would urge you to make sure that your contract doesn't require you to pay them for something that you're going to not get on your bill, because that's the way a lot of these deals are. You know, so you get the credits and then you pay me this. Well, make sure what you have to pay for that credit is somehow or another coordinated with whether you continue to get that credit or not, because I think that there's a great deal of regulatory risk on that.
Well, I would like to open it up to any questions that anyone from the audience has. Anybody got any questions for any of our panelists? You want to start?
My question's for Howard. Howard, I watched the Republican debate last night, and I think that you might have been ganged up on for promoting government regulation. And in the specific sense, I think you mentioned sort of, you know, should PV be sort of, should that evolve to a required building code? So my question is that just a thought bubble? Is it inevitable? And does that sort of, where does that land? Does that land at the federal level? Does it land as sort of a reinvented Green Communities Act in a few years? Does that have a chance, and where should it go?
It's my idea. I just know, because I have had the opportunity to do some pretty innovative designs over the years, but I'm more of a practitioner, and I just know, you know, a roof is a flat surface. You put photovoltaic up there. To me, there's no moving parts. There's got to be a drive to come up with something that's very cost effective, because everybody needs a roof. As far as the domestic hot water, I had domestic hot water for 17 years in my house, and with 3 kids, it really didn't cost me much, and we went through a lot of hot water, and I know that it worked, I'll say 9 months out of the year. There were times where it'd kick on in January too, but I got pretty much all my domestic hot water out of, I think it was 3 panels, and they were not high-tech panels at that point, but it works. And I'm just amazed that, you know, we push for other things, we offer incentives for other things, but everybody needs domestic hot water in your home, and you look at how many homes there are, and, you know, apartment homes, condos, whatever. This works, and to me, it's not something you don't move from house to house annually. You're going to be there, I don't know what the average is, someone said once 7 years, but it's something I just think is pretty simple, and to me is a no-brainer, but it's just my thoughts outside the box to say, you know, we ought to just do it. And if we do it, then it will become more and more cost-effective.
Any other questions? Yeah, right here.
Speaking to that same point, I'm on the community task force in my community, and one of the things that we did was education in the elementary schools, and you'd be surprised how hard a child will push their parent, and they see it as a good idea to do exactly what you're talking about. And the growth of solar hot water in our town, because of the kids saying this is a really neat idea and look at how much we could save, was tremendous. So starting from the bottom up in education makes a big difference, and having the school systems and the state has not spent as much time educating our kids as pushing up, because that upward pressure on your parents is pretty strong.
If I could just add to that, because that's something I feel somewhat passionate about. I've worked with a particular technical school, and they do have now a course for photovoltaic and for domestic hot water. You know, there was a time where they would have a metal shop or whatever, and surprisingly, they had dropped their HVAC course at one point, and they brought it back. But I think, and I've written, in my monthly column I have, it's sort of my Andy Rooney, what's right and wrong with the building industry. And I really don't need to have an answer to the thing, I just need to put it out there. One of the things I thought was, this would be a great thing for a tech student who isn't necessarily planning on going on to college right away, but if you had a course on energy management, a lot the ideas would have been discussed. I know a zillion different large owners who could use someone to sit there at a reasonable salary, but with a career growth outline for that person, including going to school night, which probably would lead to a degree, versus trying to find a college graduate who knows all about energy through their courses, but also wants a lot more money because they just spent a lot of money for 4 years. So I think the schools, particularly we could start in the K through 12 and then focus on the tech schools for these practitioner roles where for years they would be the ones putting out the plumbers and the heating refrigeration technicians.
I have quite time for one or two more questions. Yes, right here.
I know we have a robust solar market and we have SREC programs to create that, but I'm growing more concerned about the development impact of changing the federal tax credit status, cash tax thing, and net metering thing. In fact, we have everybody looking at Massachusetts at the same time.
Yeah, I understand, but based on the economics that I've been looking at with our developers, you know, they're getting the payback is quite rapid. The SREC value today, my understanding, and Jimmy can correct me if I'm wrong, is roughly 60% of the cost, covers roughly 60% of the cost of the installation. So these investors are getting their money back very rapidly. They also can restructure the financing to debt, and so they're able to manage that within this time horizon. But it's very interesting to me to see how different the perspective is of the developers, of the how solid this SREC market regime is in Massachusetts. And you know, part of it is just finding one that has the perspective that's most beneficial to you as a customer. I've talked to very large developers that will not commit to an SREC price assumption out more than 5 years. I have seen others that are willing to go out 10. So it's really just a question of finding the one that works best for whatever your project is, and then locking it in. These are 20-year deals.
I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Jim.
SREC, as we see in other states, faces regulatory risk. And it really became clear in New Jersey what that regulatory risk is. So from a developer standpoint, that regulatory risk is real. Right now, one can't go into the market and hedge that risk. There's not enough liquidity in the market, and there's not enough price transparency. So the developer is taking that risk, and as well as the entity that's financing. So what I view as the biggest concern is boom bust, as you mentioned. Many people coming into the area will increase, lots of big projects, capital away. I'm talking about a worst case scenario here, the capital away, and the SREC price will go right down to the minimum level. In fact, right now, the pricing that we've been seeing from brokers is that in 2013, the buyers only willing to buy currently at the minimum level. So it's the challenge from the industry standpoint would be to have stability, and this is what an investor needs. An investor needs to have stability for the long term in terms of rules and regulations, and without that stability, then companies have to make their best business decisions based upon those factors.
I think we're out of time. Just for one more? Yes, right here.
Yeah, a question for Cynthia. You had mentioned, particularly for the off-takers, the 3 key items that they really need to be aware of. And my question is on the second one, you know, being able to do, you know, their due diligence for the, you know, myriad of solar developers that may be approaching them. What are the top 3 things an off-taker should look for before they go down the road of a solar developer proposal?
Not necessarily in this order of priority, but certainly you want to have an EPC that is experienced and has the labor available to do the job, who has the capability to do ongoing maintenance effectively. So you really want someone who's just, this is just anything like any other construction job that you're pursuing, you want someone who can do it well. The second thing would be access to capital and how secure that is. Every developer will tell you they have access to capital, that they have partnerships, that they have arrangements. You have to dig deep into how strong is that relationship. A lot of the developers, what they do is they bundle projects. They wait until they have enough projects together to then approach investors to fund all of them at the same time.
So on that point, you know, what's the right question to ask that EPC or solar developer? To tell you, we've got capital, we're ready to go, and then, you know, they make promises and months go by, weeks go by, and the promises are empty.
Ask them if they have capital committed to them by a particular investor or investors. In other words, that they have a vehicle in place. By that I mean a contract with a investor saying that they will dedicate a certain tranche of capital to that particular developer and their projects. Look at their track record. How many projects have they built in the last 2 years? What are their sizes? How are they financed? Just look at their track record and access to capital. You also need creditworthiness is another big issue, and you need to know what is their investor going to want from you to evaluate whether they're willing to finance your project or not, because the investors have credit assurance criteria, and you're entitled to know what they are. And so that if you, for example, if you're an entity that's not rated by Moody's or Standard & Poor's, you may have trouble getting your project financed. More and more, though, I'm hearing investors are willing to finance non-rated entities. Well, then you want to know, well, what do they want to know, and what is their criteria going to be? How many years of financial audits do I have to have? What are my credit ratios I'm going to have? You have to sort of get them to tell you what their criteria are going to be financed. And then the final big thing from an investor's perspective is the purchase power agreement. What kinds of things are they going to require in the PPA? Some investors have a PPA that they say, you either, I will finance any project where you have somebody who signs this PPA, but I will not finance a project that changes one iota, one dot or T in that PPA without my approval. So you have to understand what are the investor's requirements.
Just real quick, Jim.
Right, sure. I think one of the key things is how fast does the developer go into construction after the PPA sign? In our business, because we have all municipal government, every PPA is different because just it's the way, nature of the beast. But all our projects that we win and sign a contract with go right into construction, and I think that's the question. If there's lots of projects out there that have been won, and it's been a year and a half, and they're still not into construction, and that's what I would look at, that track record. And I think Cynthia's absolutely right about looking at track record.
Okay, I think that should be it for the panel. So listen, I really appreciate all three of our panelists participating here. We're going to have some quick closing remarks, and then we'll have some time to visit with some of the exhibitors outside. So here is Peter Sandler.
Thank you all so much. Like I mentioned before, we have sort of appetizer-style eats out there and encourage networking in this room, but remember the food's going to be out there. Just a last thank you to National Grid, to Integris Energy Services, our presenting sponsors, to Conover & Company, Prince Lobel, Mark E. Meacham and the Hanover Theater, our supporting sponsors, all the exhibitors and panelists, all of you for great questions, and in some cases some real questions being answered and expertise out of the audience. And also a special thanks to Elevation Exhibits, Mark Sierra Productions, who's shooting our video, and Ron Boulay Photography, the one's right in front here. So that's it, folks. Thank you. I hope you had a great half day. Remember, we will have, you will, as long as we have your email, you will get access to the video and slides, and you can relive this wonderful experience. Thank you all so much again.